Salutations, everybody. It is Matty here today with episode 279 of the H.A.M Radio Podcast.
And it's me, Karak with ACG.
And I'm Dustin with Colin's Last Stand and Handsome Phantom.
Hell yeah, boys. We hope all of you out there who celebrated Thanksgiving had a wonderful turkey day. We take no days off on this podcast, so we are here. Well, we're recording on Friday, the day after. I don't know about you all. I had a little bit of the...
It's Black Friday, though.
It is. It is. I hope everyone's shopping well. I was going to say, I have the holiday blues. Like, I struggled to just get going today, get the ball rolling today. So I'm very relaxed this episode because I was quite lazy today. Had to record an ad, had to do a Steam sale video, just real tough work here. But what have you gentlemen been up to this past week? Have you taken some time to yourself to relax? Anything good? What have you been playing? Let's catch up, boys.
Go ahead, Justin.
For me, well, my parents have been in, which is great because it's always good to see, the family. But that means a little less gaming time overall. But that's fine. Parents. It's a good trade-off. But I picked up 2 games on a good sale, good deal. I got Black Ops Cold War, which I was able to get. I don't know if this is all perfectly legal, but I don't really care.
Okay.
So through NVIDIA, they're offering, like, if you buy an RTX card, you get Call of Duty. And someone was selling one of those codes on Reddit. People sell them all the time because they don't want them.
Oh.
So I bought one from someone on Reddit for $30, which I thought was a pretty good deal.
Absolutely worth it, I think. I like the game a lot.
Yeah. And so far, I've enjoyed it. The multiplayer, I thought, has been pretty good. And campaign is very unique. Some aspects I like, some I don't. But honestly, it doesn't even pale in comparison to the excitement of 13 Sentinels, which I started playing, and I am really liking that game.
How deep are you into it? I've heard it's very mind-fucky.
It's already... So I think I'm less than 3 hours, because I've just been playing like 45 minutes to an hour for the last 3 nights each night, and it gets pretty mind-bending pretty early on, which nice. I can't even imagine what's going to happen later, but I just love the overall the visuals and the aesthetic is fantastic. And it's funny because I went and I looked back at older Vanillaware games and they don't look anywhere near as good as this game. Correct. In my opinion. Yeah. This one is on its own level for sure. And the other good thing that I wanted to report on is that I am playing the dub or the English. I guess it's not a dub if it's a video game, but the English VO, just because I've realized that for the most part with video games, I prefer them in English. When in anime, I prefer listening to the original Japanese audio with subtitles. So depending on the game, of course, depending on the quality of the VO. And the VO is really good, which it's from Atlas, so they have a pretty good track record of good English dubs. So overall, though, it's pretty unique in that it is very much like really a visual novel-esque, and then there's like gameplay mixed in. It will go long sections without gameplay, and then there will be some of this like RTS type gameplay, which the whole 3 hours I've been playing, it's each time I do a gameplay mission, it's just been tutorial, but not in a bad way.
Okay.
When you say 3 hours and you're like, you're still in the tutorial, the story stuff that's been happening, which has been literally most of what that 3 hours has been really cool. So don't buy this game. I mean, the gameplay's fine. I think the RTS stuff is cool, and I'm excited to see how in-depth it can go. But it's really not the core of why I'd say you're buying or want to check out the game. But I am really just excited to play it more. It's one of those things. It's one of those games that when I'm hanging out, maybe my mom or dad is like sitting in the living room with their phone or something. It's not that I don't want to play in front of them, like I'm embarrassed or something. It's just not a good like casual, like I have to be like focused in to process what's even happening. So, but yeah, other than those 2 games, Maddie, you and I were on Sacred Symbols Plus earlier this week, and we talked about some comparisons between the Xbox Series X and PS5. It was a fantastic episode, exclusive to CLS patrons. So I'd recommend going over there and checking that out. I believe you can get it eventually at the $1 level. I don't know if that's out for the $1 level. It's definitely out for the $5 levels though.
Okay.
So,
yeah, we had a really good response to that episode. I remember telling you afterwards, I was like, I kind of felt off there, but it was really nice to see a really strong, warm reception there after you had reassured me too. You were like, you were fine.
Dude, what's interesting about the comments on that one, which this is normal, but like, I thought that the 80%, no, not even 80, like the 90 to 95% of positive comments seemed extra really positive about it.
Mm-hmm.
But there were like something about comparing consoles, even if you're fair and you're not, and you're just giving an opinion, right?
Oh yeah.
It brings out this 5% that's like,
fuck you.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and it's so funny because you and I were both like, our message was at the end was very clear. Like, no matter what, it's exciting. Mm-hmm. Both of these consoles are great. There's nothing heinously wrong with either one. Mm-hmm. Sure, each one has issues, but either way, the future is exciting, but not good enough for some people.
Yeah, sadly.
So that's okay though. We can't please everybody.
As we progress in this episode, for those who are unaware, we record all of our episodes on Discord. So if you're watching on the video version, which 10,000+ of you seem to have been consistently doing, so thank you.
Thanks.
The connection's been up and down. We're green barring, then we're yellow barring, green barring, and then we got on a red. So just know that's why everyone looks a little pixelated outside of myself, because I recorded straight up on my desktop. And also that's why some people will sound good quality wise, but sometimes they'll pixelate just ever so slightly. You hear a little distortion there. So I just wanted to be clear with everyone. I forgot to mention right off the rip, like I normally do, I had to hear from both of you so quickly, and Karak will get to you in a sec, that this show is available early access, ad-free, over on patreon.com/MrMattyPlays. Just a single buck gets you access to the show. We are at 280+ now, gentlemen. This is significant. I started off this year at like, I think 140 or something like that. So patrons are very hard to come by because everyone works hard for their dollar and they want to spend it in different places. So for us to double our size in a year and keep that size has been really nice. So we appreciate all of you hopping on board, supporting what we're doing here. If you want a little extra content, we do an extra slice of ham most weeks. We took a week off for the holidays, or at least I chose to, just because I really didn't feel like doing another show, because I've been recording a ton of stuff lately because things are ramping up, to say the least. And so I want to be ahead of the game. I want to be on top of things so that when the time comes for a little holiday break, we can all comfortably take one. So I just wanted to take this past extra slice of ham off, but we will be back next week talking about holiday games. What games remind us of Christmas time? What games do we play seasonally? That important type of stuff. So thank you to all of you who have been hopping in, supporting us. Everyone here has their own Patreon, which I have it linked in the description down below. So lots of ways to support this show. It doesn't have to go directly to me unless you want to listen to maybe early access for this show. You could support Dustin. You could support Karak. But that's enough of that. Karak, what have you been up to, my friend? Playing, hanging out?
Yeah, let's see. Well, today's podcast we gave away a PS5 and an Xbox One,
nice.
and then, or an Xbox Series X, and then it was nice enough that one of the patrons gave us 2 more, so we'll be giving out a PS5 and Xbox Series X, which was very cool to actually do. We had like 2,000 people or 2,500 in there, which my assumption is at least 2,200 were in there for the items, but that's still 300 people watching the stream that we always do, which is very fun. That was cool to do. This week has been mostly, I think I have about 65 hours in Phoenix Rising. It's almost 70.
65, nice.
So been playing mostly that. Returned to Valhalla to test the 60 FPS mode on the S, and that S fucking phenomenal, man. Mm-hmm. I just now that they got the tools as of, I think, last weekend, for the Series S, I didn't really know how it would handle 60 FPS, but holy, that is fucking insane. And it shows that the CPUs in the consoles are I think one of the biggest bonuses that people just have never been accustomed to. Because they were PPC prior, and then they were Jaguar mobile CPUs, and so you could never get good FPS, which is why with a Pro you still didn't get 60, or with the Xbox X. But with these, being able to get 60 for a lot of people is going to be, maybe something that makes them go towards a console versus a PC because of cost. And that's awesome to see, man. It's especially a free return. And another thing I did was played a bunch of old games because I'm trying to look into older titles that are getting backwards compatible, patches,
right.
or like the Xbox does fake HDR. Well, I call it fake, but it's artificial intelligence HDR for all games, which is just insane. So playing Skylanders and some of the older games with full HDR and Batman and all those games that aren't normally HDR. I've been doing a lot of testing to see where they are. So a lot of it's tech. Phoenix.
Has there been anything that in that backwards compatible section, has there been anything that kind of impressed you or caught your attention? Like, oh, this does look a little different, a little bit better.
Well, HDR is probably the big thing because, like, for example, a Skylanders is very saccharine anyway. It's very sugary, colory, or Viva Pinata kind of thing. And to turn that on, or Batman probably. Because Skylanders is amazing. Skylanders is amazing, but Batman is ridiculous because people don't realize HDR isn't just about brightness and darkness. It's about color gamut. It's about all kinds of stuff. And to see that in some of these games is any dark game, Dragon's Dogma, huge difference with the HDR. So I wouldn't say a specific game. No, it's just, it's more like just seeing them run well, because like Dragon's Dogma never ran well. Dragon's Dogma, even the new version for the consoles, still dropped frames. And so to see it locked is pretty insane.
Right.
Other than that, yesterday I had the first carbs I've had in like 3 months, and it was a cinnamon wrapped. It was like a cinnamon bread with cream cheese in the center that was injected with cinnamon and sugar, granular sugar.
So
and
you probably were bugging out a little bit, yeah.
Felt like shit this morning because you said you felt weird, and I don't know if that's why. I was beat to shit, but yesterday I got to tell you, man, like I having flashbacks. Like PTSD for cake, which is crazy because I literally had a dream about it. It was so good. It was so that was a game in and of itself because I choked the entire cake down. Like my wife had this little sliver and I was like, yeah, man, I probably won't try any. And she had this little sliver and I tried some and I'm like, fuck that, man. You have you're serving, you're not getting any more. And I just grabbed that fucking thing and so good. So good. Games wise, that's it. Well, I will say normally I don't pimp the Patron at all, but I will now. We also got I think next gen is what I'm, for the most part is what I'm taking advantage of. You see people excited about talking about systems,
right?
But we're also doing a full D&D game with the patrons that we've been doing, and that's becoming a series of videos as well as animated cartoon kind of stuff that we're doing for the channel that'll be patrons only. So that's actually been, and that'll be, anything above the $5 level will be able to see that. And then we've been doing D&D games in the Discord as well, which has actually turned out to be fantastic. Yeah, that's actually been a total blast. So you'll see some other stuff that I can't talk about right now as well that's patron only. When we can talk about all this stuff, right. I'll for sure talk about it.
A lot of contracts.
Yeah, it's been, yeah. A lot of really odd NDAs, like today's NDA, even for a certain game when you can talk about one thing but can't talk about another.
Yeah.
There's a lot of weirdness going on.
Yeah.
That's it.
I've also been playing Phoenix. I think that's all I can really say. Yeah, I think I've been playing it, and can't really say when we'll talk about the game, but I've had it.
Yeah.
Other than that, I've been bouncing between a lot of games. I also went and tried Assassin's Creed Valhalla and its next gen patch, and I really like that game. I stepped away from it, played a bunch of other stuff. And then coming back to that game, I really, really like the progression loop of Valhalla. I think it works so well. It really does. The going out into the world, doing mysteries or collecting wealth or doing raids, and then coming back to your camp with those new supplies settlement, building new things, unlocking new quests, seeing new people come in. Seeing the impact of like your moves on the world. It's really nice. I really like it. In the 60 FPS, I was playing in the performance mode. The game already looked really good when I played it on a base PS4. So just seeing it, being able to fully take advantage of next gen consoles, and using that 60 FPS and having it look a little better as well. That was really nice. So I enjoyed hopping back into that. I finally also beat Trails of Cold Steel 2. I think I'm done with Trails for a while now. I beat the first 2 games because I know that was like its own set story, and then the third entry in the series is like I think 2 years later. So right now we're in a space where a lot of content's going to pick up, and I'm happy I have that behind me now. So I'll go to Trails of Cold Steel 3 probably sometime next year. But I'm happy to have those 2 done. I will say my opinion of the series has really improved. Trails of Cold Steel 2 was fantastic. I really like that game through and through. Only issue that franchise truly has, because I couldn't help myself, I did download the Trails of Cold Steel 3 demo. Just got a little taste of what's to come because they did invest more. There was like a 3-year gap between 2 and 3. So I was like, okay, I got to see, where the money went. The character models look so much better. The combat looks so much better. Animations look better. So I'm very excited. But biggest issue with the franchise is there's so much exposition. It's actually disgusting. Just like lots and lots and lots of explaining and dialogue. And at times it's appreciated when you're in those, like especially toward the end of both games I've played. I was like, man, this is great. Keep going. You never want it to end. But there are moments in the game where it's like, please shut up. I would like to play. So yeah, that's what I've been playing. I've been hopping between a lot of things lately. When it comes to Thanksgiving, his character reminded me. I want to know if you guys know anything about this. When I went to my girlfriend's for the first half of Thanksgiving, and I had to double dinner, because you don't want to be rude at her house, have her meal, and then go home and then eat your own meal. So I had to satisfy both ends, because her whole family was at her house. So I go there, and I hadn't ate all day. It was about 1 o'clock, closing in on 2 actually, when we were sitting down to eat. And I had a relatively simple plate in the scheme of its when it comes to its size. I didn't have too much food, but I had enough, and I was extremely full. But then I got home, and I had seconds at my own dinner. What happened there? I thought I was going to explode at her house, but at my own house, I was ready to keep going.
I have a theory about this, Matty.
Let's hear.
It's related and unrelated, because I've noticed like the number one time I gorge myself is when I eat Chipotle. And I have a theory. When I go to Chipotle starving, by the end of the burrito, I can barely finish it. But if I go to Chipotle and I'm like a little hungry, by the end of the burrito, I'm like, let's go. I'm ready for round 2.
Okay.
So I think that first meal, you just kind of like primed your stomach or something.
So my stomach was shrunken down, maybe.
Yeah. And then by the time you got home, it was go time.
Yeah, that was like the warm up when you think about it, right? Like,
yeah,
I had a nice little warm up at my girlfriend's house, and I went home and I just annihilated the table. Shit, bro.
Yeah.
All right.
That's what you got to do, man.
Yeah. Well, with that absolutely fantastic transition, this week's episode, we wanted to focus on, since it was a pretty slow news week, of course, because of the holidays and so many games coming out. I think next week we'll see more news. So this week we wanted to give our predictions on the nominations for the Game Awards. A lot of people I was reading the comments, really liked our section on the Game Awards last week. I think out of all the comments we got, most of them were pointing at that section. Karak, a lot of people really appreciated your transparency on how much you did not like the system. And a lot of people really liked our discussion in general, just talking about the Game Awards and how it's set up. So these are not our personal picks. We will be doing a whole Game of the Year show for our podcast at the end of the year. I already said this before, but just to make sure people know, so if they can get involved or start thinking about it, we're going to go onto our Patron Discord and do a little bit of a poll there to get people involved, get your picks, have you vote. So we'll have kind of a listener/viewer vote, and then we will have a actual award, not award, so to speak, but our personal picks. And so it'll just be a discussion of like why I picked so-and-so for Game of the Year, why Dustin picked so-and-so for the Game of the Year, and maybe we'll do RPG and action. We'll evolve it as it goes on, but that's going to be its own separate show. For now, we want to talk about what is, even if we're not huge fans of it, widely considered the games industry's primary Game Award show. So we're just going to go down their list of nominations and pick from what they have there. And of course, it begins with the big dog, Game of the Year. So the selections, according to the Game Awards, for Game of the Year, recognizing a game that delivers the absolute best experience across all creative and technical fields, are Doom Eternal, Final Fantasy VII Remake, Ghost of Tsushima, Hades, Animal Crossing New Horizons, and The Last of Us Part 2. Gentlemen, whoever would like to go first, what is your pick from this list for Game of the Year?
Ghost of Tsushima.
Oh.
Hell yeah. I agree.
That's confidence right there. Now, I have a question, Matt.
The other games aren't close to me.
Are we predicting the winner, or are we saying our personal choice?
I would say we're predicting the winner, but I guess your personal choice might be
either the same.
Yeah, right. I think they're one and the same when you think about it. Like, if I were to pick Doom, I'd probably try to supply reasoning as to why it could win it all.
I feel like, I don't know. I think that Ghost was the sleeper hit that everyone fell in love with. And I think that, I might be with Karak that could be the winner. But looking at the jury, I really think Animal Crossing could take it. Because everyone's going to think about how Animal Crossing was there for them during lockdown, I think. And
okay. Sorry, I'm confused. So we're not okay. Thanks for asking that. I didn't realize.
Sorry,
what
did I not explain that properly?
Saying ours out of the game.
We could do both.
But it was ours out of this list.
We can do
because
both.
I think Ghost of Tsushima, but there's no chance it'll win because all the people voting completely have no clue what they're fucking talking about. So it'll be Animal Crossing. Like Last of Us. Like I have they're not gonna right?
That's interesting.
Yeah,
I would pick Ghost of Tsushima, but I think Ghost of Tsushima will win. I feel like across the board.
Man, no way.
Really? I think that's the most.
So? Yeah.
I mean, I think they're
Dude,
all.
It's because you look at them as Game of the Award. Everybody on this list is looking at them as a fucking popularity casual contest. Like none of them. There's no way. Or The Last of Us because it's social, ramifications. They're not going to pick Ghost of Tsushima because it's a Japanese fucking martial arts like slash 'em up action game, and so people just be like, oh, it does open world the best, made by Americans, but it's not Game of the Year because that needs to resonate. I don't know.
I feel like it has a good shot. I think as an open world game.
Let's hope.
And I think it would be good, right? I loved the game. It impressed me. I think a lot of people were caught off guard by how good it was, kind of like Dustin said. I don't know. I know not many people are taking it seriously, but from my perspective, looking at their description of a game that delivers the absolute best experience across all creative and technical fields, I would never pick Animal Crossing, but that's implying that the people selecting care about that and know what that actually means. I also think Hades could sneak up on people and win it all. I think there's been because Hades released at the perfect time and really set the world on fire. Like I've never heard a bad thing about Hades. I remember I did an episode of Extra Slice asking people what they were playing, and I think 70% of our answers were Hades, and everyone loves it. Not even just from that alone, but when I tweeted about it, whenever I've seen tweets about it, whenever I see videos on it, I have not seen negative feedback on Hades. Maybe I've missed it, but that is one that I think could really sneak up and just grab people because it's one that doesn't require heavy investment. There is a seeing it through, right? But I think you could argue, I played this for a couple of hours, given the jury, and be like, Game of the Year. I really like this. I hope I like it more in a couple of hours.
The thing also about Animal Crossing that I learned this the other day is that I want to say it's the 17th best-selling game of all time already. And it's not even been a year. And Karak, I think you might be right as far as this being a popularity contest more than anything else. Think about the question is not to get into a big thing about the jurors again, but I was like, in a let's say IGN, how many votes does IGN get? Do they get one vote? Do they get a certain amount of votes based on how many people are on their editorial team? No one knows. And then you have the aspect of the Hollywood Reporter. And when you look at this lineup of games, the most likely game to be played by most of the people on the jury list is Animal Crossing.
See, but last year Sekiro won it all, and I would have never.
That's a great point.
I never would have thought of that, right? Like I wanted it to win, even though I wasn't a huge fan of it. But I was thinking to myself, there's no way enough people played this and liked it at that, and but we got proven wrong on that front. That's why I feel like Ghost of Tsushima could have a chance because it might be a carryover from last year, a little bit more of that in a different style, different flavor. I feel like each of these picks, outside of maybe Doom Eternal would surprise me because that is just raw gameplay. It is phenomenal on a lot of levels, but like it's not a storytelling spectacle or anything like that. I think it's clearly the one title, maybe next to Animal Crossing, that is just gameplay. But yeah, I feel like Ghost of Tsushima stands a good chance, but that's just we'll kind of describe as we go through this what's our pick and what we think is actually going to win. I'm going Ghost of Tsushima for both.
For both.
I'm picking it, and I think it's going to win because I know.
Sorry, I had scrolled to the next category, and I thought you might have been suggesting that as well.
Oh no,
which may be a good segue.
That is a great segue. Thank you for opening it up for me. Best game direction is next. Awarded for outstanding creative vision and innovation in game direction and design, we have Final Fantasy VII Remake, Ghost of Tsushima, Hades, Half-Life Alyx, and The Last of Us Part 2. Dustin's nodding and shaking his head. Okay.
I think only one of those games really innovates. When we're talking about innovation, right?
Me too.
Half-Life Alyx
won't win, but I agree.
Well, no, I don't think it will win.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
truly, that was I've said this before on this podcast. I think it was months ago, but like, when I played Half-Life Alyx, I was like, wow, I can truly say I've never played anything like this. Sure, I've played shooter style games in VR, but this groundbreaking, amazing. Anyone, if you have a VR headset, you have to play this game. Truly. And the best part is that only a company like Valve, I think, could pull this off because they have like fuck you money and can say, hey, we're gonna make a AAA VR game that only is going to be able to be even played by a small amount of our user base, and we're going to do it because that's what we want to do. And I guess they did have a headset to support it.
Yeah,
I mean, so it wasn't just pleasure, but I don't know. When I look at these other ones, like Ghost of Tsushima, maybe some innovations as far as their open world design.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's really, honestly, is this bad to say that there's nothing, not that this is talking about the quality of the game, but I don't think Last of Us Part 2 really did anything to innovate.
I'm surprised that and Final Fantasy VII Remake made the list.
Though it is also creative vision. We have to keep that.
I think the level design in The Last of Us Part 2 is phenomenal. I think it's the best level design of the entire year. Like the combat arenas and how dynamic they are. I always think of during the second half of the game, there's this part where there's this 2-story building and it's like kind of broken down. There's like open fields that you're crawling through. And there's so many enemies plotted throughout and there's so many ways to approach it. And there's a lot of areas in the game that play out that way, but that was like the most distinct moment for me. So I think, in the terms of creating levels and engaging gameplay, Last of Us Part 2 does a really good job. But my pick, even as someone who hasn't played it, I just know Half-Life Alyx innovates more than anything on this list. But the reality is I think Half-Life... How do I word this? I think it would be more easy to say this would win if we knew enough people played it to get it on the Game of the Year list. But clearly not enough people did. But to get it on Best Game Direction, I don't know. I'd be very surprised if that actually won, given that not enough people played it to throw it on the main Game of the Year list. So I want Half-Life Alyx to win, but I personally believe it will be The Last of Us Part 2. And Karak, you said right off the bat, Last of Us Part 2.
Yeah, I mean, creative vision and stuff like that. Like, I just have a feeling everybody's so far up their ass that, like, I just don't see, when you say that and you say Last of Us 2, even if you didn't like it, which I wasn't in love with it, it still has some, it's closest to a movie, even if that's not your thing. What I was going to say is I have no clue what they're going for. If they're going for the words, I'd like to see their rules. How are you explaining stuff? Because like the first one, even recognizing a game that delivers the absolute best experience across all creative and technical fields. Then the next one, awarded for outstanding creative vision. They're just using words.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'd like to know exactly what they mean. Like, is a Game of the Year the one that resonates with them? Or the one that, like, better than all the others?
That passes like a test almost of what they define as creative.
So, like, I don't know. Whenever I see creative, I can see Last of Us 2. And even, like I said, I'm not in love with it, but I would not have an issue with that winning. Like I wouldn't have any problem. Personally, for me, it would be Ghost of Tsushima or Alex, but I don't know how they're going about it. So I would just say for me, it would be those. But what I think will probably win would most likely be Last of Us Part 2. I could be wrong. Sort of hope I am.
I think Ghost of Tsushima has a chance to take home an award for this one too, just because of the guiding wind and how the world is laid out. I feel like that in its own right, especially because it connects to the narrative. I feel like a lot of it is cohesive. Everything connects to another thing. The open world activities are a little more Zen focused, which is very different for our time. And so I think that's innovative. Even if it sounds very weird, I think and to have such a stellar combat system in an open world game, but then have your activities directly fight against that, where you sit in a bathtub naked, like it's weird, but it works. And so I think that's a sign of great direction as well. But do they think on our level? We shall see.
No.
And I missed the innovation thing, to be honest. It was covered up by my light. I missed the innovation thing.
Does that change your answer?
Because the innovation, it gives less of a chance of Ghost of Tsushima, because I know a lot of people were like, they loved it, but they didn't feel it really innovated as much as just took what was there and, renovated it, which is technically what it did.
That's fair. Yeah,
so
that's a good point.
True.
I could see them looking at it. They've got so many fucking words. Like, I don't and the title doesn't make any sense compared to the rest. So I don't know. Like, yeah, I would say that gives Ghost of Tsushima less of a chance, unfortunately. Yeah.
I think you make a good point. Yeah, I think that's fair. Best narrative is up next. For outstanding storytelling and narrative development in a game, I do think that one's a little more clear. 13 Sentinels, Aegis Rim, Final Fantasy VII Remake, Ghost of Tsushima, Hades again, The Last of Us Part 2 again. Now,
they're going to give it to Last of Us.
I think the most standout one here is 13 Sentinels. That this one did crack the list in a world of AAA titles. We got Vanillaware in Best Narrative. That is no snuff whatsoever. Dustin, as someone who has played a couple of hours of this, I know you can't really be like, this is it. But does it surprise you to see it there?
Yeah, I think, to put this briefly, what's interesting about the narrative is that you play different chunks as different characters, and eventually I think you can choose different parts at different times, and they do it in a really unique way. I guess it may not be unique, but they'll make sure that you still get the story fed to you at the right times. But so far, pretty interesting. Cool. Again, I need to put a lot more time in, but I'm glad to see it on there for sure.
Yeah. See, for me, I like Ghost of Tsushima's story surprised me. I haven't played Hades. I really need to. But The Last of Us Part 2, like, look, I'll just say it. The fact that it's fucking on this.
Dude, it's going to win this one.
I'm
telling you. I'm not saying I agree with it. I'm just saying it's going to win for Best Narrative.
I'm not a Last of Us Part 2 hater. I thought it was a solid game, but I fucking thought its story was not that great.
This is going to be a revenge vote, okay? It's the media versus the people, and they know. And again, I like The Last of Us Part 2. I don't think it's 10 out of 10, but I thought it was a good time. Okay. I've already mostly forgotten about it. That's how I feel about it. That's the biggest indicator.
Yeah.
But I think that people will vote for this out of spite.
I wouldn't be, yeah. I hate to throw that on people, but that wouldn't surprise me at all. It was so controversial when it came out on specific narrative decisions.
I don't think it's an intentional spite. I think that they're, based on the conversation around this game, I think that there was a situation where people were like, wow, I hate this. And then people were like, I really like this. And then as people began to argue and get more toxic, you dig your feet in more.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think the people that really love this game, there's an aspect of the fact that part of their love for it is the defense of it. And the people that hate it, I don't know. Maybe I'm overanalyzing this too much.
No, I actually keep going, man. I think you're actually, that's exactly what's happening. It's because the key is it's not a spite out of like, fuck you, because that's a whole different world. It's more like, oh, I really believe this, or I'm not changing or you can't change my opinion, that type of thing. We see that a lot.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And
I don't know if that's a lack of open-mindedness or more so like determination in your beliefs. But it's I think you're spot on. I think that is an accurate description of what may play out. For me, I would love to see 13 Sentinels win, just to see, Atlas and Vanillaware. That would be kind of big.
Yeah.
Put that game on the map a little bit more, just a little bit more. That would be awesome. You were about to say something though?
Yeah, I wanted to clarify real quick because I can see the comments in my brain. I'm not trying to discount it if you either liked it or didn't like it. I'm not saying your opinion's invalid. I'm just saying that a lot of people may have been heightened by the discourse
How could
around
you not
the
be,
game.
right? I literally actively chose not to review it because the discourse was so toxic. I had the game, I had it done. I literally had a whole review and skits planned and some of it filmed, and I went, I don't want to be in this conversation. I just chose not to.
It's unfortunate too, especially around, I don't know, maybe this is a hot take. I feel like Naughty Dog narrative this generation has been nowhere near the quality of the PS3 generation.
Man, what have they
specifically
done this
thinking
generation? What, Lost Legacy, 4, and Last of Us Part 2, right?
Yeah. Okay. I just think that like all three of those games on a technical level, incredible. But I just found all three of them mostly forgettable.
Mm-hmm. I haven't played 4, so I can't speak on that. Actually, I haven't played Lost. I've only played one of the 3. So I can't comment on their quality as generation. But for me, I've always been a bigger fan of The Last of Us Part 2. I'm sorry, Last of Us in general than Uncharted. I like the grittier Naughty Dog. I think they handle it really well. So for me, it was more disappointing that The Last of Us Part 2 didn't deliver as strongly, at least in the first half. I thought the second half, which I think is the part people get really touchy with, I thought the second half of the game, we'll just say, I thought that was way better than the first half. I thought the first half had a lot of holes that whenever the game challenged it, they hoped that you wouldn't ask questions. And especially the last 2 hours, 3 hours, I just should have just ended before that. That's a whole other conversation, though. Karak, out of all those listed here on narrative, what's your pick? And what do you think is going to win?
I'm surprised Final Fantasy's on there and Ori's not, which is sort of sad. Mm-hmm. But just because I thought its storytelling was pretty good. I would say of here, probably Hades, even though I've never played it. I just hear, especially when you look at the word development, it feels like a lot of people like the repetitive way in which Hades plays. Right. Other than that, Last of Us 2 will probably win, just because. The moment you talk about storytelling, it's like it just sort of, it's not that it wins de facto. I just think maybe against these, because its competition isn't, I mean, not to be rude, but competition isn't super strong. I haven't played Sentinels, but like Ghost of Tsushima and Final Fantasy Remake, even I would have a hard time saying those were better than Last of Us 2. And I actually liked the narrative turn in Tsushima. Mm-hmm. Oh, it just feels like that's a really weak category.
Yeah, I agree.
And there's a lot of games missing, which is, again, I don't know how the games get on here, but like there's a lot of games this year too
yeah, two that stick out missing from there are definitely Ori and I'd say Persona 5 Royal. A lot of people challenge that Persona 5 Royal should not have been on the list because it's a re-release, but there is
it a re-release?
Yeah, but I don't know. I think it's a whole new game personally. That's just my take. And when you have Among Us in a category we'll talk about later on, I don't know, man. Doesn't really add up to me, but I'm not calling the shots. I think I will.
5 the normal number?
What's up?
Sorry. Is 5 the normal number in most awards shows to be the number voted on? Because or 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, is 5 the normal number of entries we see in award shows?
It's interesting because Game of the Year has 6. Yeah. I think 5 is the minimum, which is interesting. The reason I say that is because when we get to the fighting game category, it's fucking embarrassing. It's actually, there's a selection in there, and it happened last year, where it's like this game was almost objectively horrible, and it made it. I think last year Jump Force made it. This year it was One Punch Man, which has a 3.3 user score on Metacritic. It's actually
1 Punch Man's terrible.
Yeah, it's fucking awful. and it made it into the best fighting category. And the other games that are there are like MK11 Ultimate and Street Fighter V Ultimate. I'm just like, wow, nothing new really comes out except one game on that list, which was Grand Blue Versus. And it's one of those things where I think they should lower their minimum and increase their maximum, because I think more choices is better. That's exciting. If I see like 8 choices for Game of the Year, you go, whoa, what a great year. Not, only 6. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, and if there's a minimum vote count, like if this game out of our community has 10 votes at least, we will put it in a category. Then maybe you see more there. But I don't know. That's a good point. The number here. I'd probably pick. I would pick out of this list here. I want 13 Sentinels to win, but I would probably pick Ghost of Tsushima because I've actually played it. But I think Last of Us will win. Next up, Best Art Direction for outstanding creative and or technical achievement in artistic design and animation. Once again, Final Fantasy VII Remake. I want to talk about that in a sec. Ghost of Tsushima, Hades, Ori, and the Will of the Wisps is here, as well as The Last of Us Part 2. The reason I wanted to talk about Final Fantasy VII Remake, I like this game, right? I want to make that clear. Do you think it being in this many categories is a little bit of nostalgia bias? Because I didn't see any type of like categorical nominations for this. I thought it would just kind of be, maybe in like action adventure Game of the Year or something like that. But it's in a lot of categories. And especially once again, it was a narrative, which I know the ending was pretty touchy, we'll say, for fans, longtime fans. What do you think of seeing so much FF7 here?
I think it will. Oh, sorry, Karak, go for it.
I was just going to say it doesn't fit in this one at all, but
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Not for best. Sorry.
Right. Yeah, I'm with you.
Do the motorbike section, bitches. If you think that's the best game, dude, and some of their fighting locations were terrible. I like the game. There was a lot of yeah, there was Baba Yaga was great, the fight in the fucking house and all that kind of, like, there were some awesome parts in that. But sure, best art direction, it's not even in the top probably 10 if you played multiple games. So I don't know why it's there. It's taken up a spot for what I would consider multiple other games.
Or this is where a minimal could come in. It's just 4.
Yeah,
right?
and Ori is the one I would want to win, and I'll just say it's going to win psychically. I'm going to force them to vote for it.
Fuck yeah.
Man, I feel like Final Fantasy VII Remake is the game that has an insane amount of nominations and is going to walk away winning very few and potentially none.
I hope so.
There is always a game like that, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
As far as this category, this one's difficult because creative direction or creative achievement and technical achievement are two very different things.
Mm-hmm.
Because, like, from this list, The Last of Us Part 2 on a technical level for what they did on PS4 and PS4 Pro, amazing looking game. But when I'm thinking about like overall creative direction, both Hades and Ori are either one of those is the clear winner for me. So I don't know.
Yeah, I agree, because technical, maybe that applies to animation and higher level graphics as well. Whereas art would apply more to Hades and Ori. I think Ori should win this because of how silky smooth it is across the board, especially now with that 4K 120 FPS update. It's fucking incredible. But even before that, I'll say this. When I was in the review period for that game, I remember, Karak, I messaged you. My game was like not working. Remember I told you I had horrible lag, and then I had to like reset the app a couple of times. Like, I had a pretty bad experience in the scheme of playing the game, and it still sat with me really well. I think that's a testament to how good of a game it is. But even if I hated it, looking at it, I mean, it is such a unique art style. There's nothing like Ori. It's pixel perfect platforming. It's amazing. I wouldn't be upset at all with either Hades or that winning, and I would pick Ori personally. But these Hades nominations, that game's calling my name, fellas. I've got to play that before the year's out. I got to play it before the year's out because I feel it's going to be on our list, like in the terms of when we engage with our viewers and listeners. I feel like we're going to hear a lot about it, and I think we should want to be in the conversation for that. Did you say your picks, Dustin? Sorry, I know you were talking about The Last of Us Part 2 a little bit, but
I don't know who will win this. It's
a toss-up.
It's a toss-up. Yeah,
Okay.
Like I said, I think Hades or Ori is what should win. Last of Us, technical, yes. So I don't know any of those three.
Okay. Next up's a fun one, I think. Best score in music for outstanding music, inclusive of score, original song, and/or licensed soundtracks. Doom Eternal, Final Fantasy VII Remake, Hades, Ori and the Will of the Wisp, and as well as The Last of Us Part 2. That one's funny. I don't know. I don't think of that game for its soundtrack personally, but I would, out of this list here, I think I would pick Doom Eternal. I think that game, I was originally going to go with Final Fantasy VII Remake, but I think Doom Eternal, its music is a part of its overall vision. You know, it kind of is designed to give you that adrenaline kick to match the vibe of the gameplay. Each mission having its own track, and it kind of gradually builds, and then the combat kicks in, and so the music kicks in, and how hard it goes. I really like the soundtrack for this game. I don't really listen to it outside of the game, though, like I would say Final Fantasy VII Remake, but I think for the game itself, absolutely Doom Eternal. That is like, those soundtracks, at least it started with 2016, those soundtracks are iconic. You know, they really capture what Doom is. So for me, for outstanding music, that would be my selection, gentlemen.
Mine's Ori.
Ooh.
Ori is good.
See,
what I played.
I don't even remember its soundtrack.
I just like Gareth Coker and everything. I mean, it's most of it's classical and stuff like that.
Right, I figured.
It's just really good.
Not figured. I remember part of that, but like I don't recall any standout tracks. I don't know why.
I don't actually either, but I don't for Doom Eternal at all, which is funny because I remember Doom also had all the weird technical issues with Mick Gordon bitching, and they said they'd never work again together.
Yeah,
because it was audio mixed wrong. Even though it can sound good, it was audio mixed wrong. So it's like that one I don't even know. I'm surprised they put it on there because it was bugged. Mm-hmm. Final Fantasies was good. I haven't heard Hades at all. Last of Us was very good, dire music, but it didn't play a lot. I do remember it was one of the first games where I was like, man, there not a lot's going on here. But Ori is just Gareth Coker. I mean, he's fucking really good. Really good. So that'd be mine.
Make a good point about Doom Eternal on the level of that whole controversy. I was just thinking,
it was a big weird deal, man.
Right? Yeah, that was really unique. Never really seen something like that. I don't know. I really liked it, but at the same time, that's a very good point that probably speaking on a more technical level in the actual development of it, it didn't come out how it probably should have. So should I actually sit here and pick it? Should I pick the flawed work, gentlemen? Or should I go
pick it because you like
it's up to you.
I mean,
I like it. Yeah, right. But 7 Remake, that's solid too. We'll do 1, 2, right? We'll do Doom, then we'll do 7 Remake. That's what we'll do.
Sure.
What was your pick, Dustin?
For me, I think for what I think will win, I think it'll be either Final Fantasy VII or Hades. And I'm kind of leaning towards Hades because people really like Darren Korb, and I don't think he's won before. Mm-hmm. And Hades does a fantastic, really good, very standout soundtrack. My personal choice is Persona 5 Royal for throw away your mask at the end. I know it's not the rules. I don't care. I know we're supposed to pick within this list, but
no, that's fine. That's a great rule break.
At the end, the songs they added just wow.
Yeah.
Really good at the end of that game.
I know.
On a serious note, probably Final Fantasy VII Remake from that list for me personally. But
all right, we're really trucking along here. Now this one I don't get. I'll be honest. Best audio design, recognizing the best in-game audio and sound design. So I guess sound effects, ambient noises, that type of stuff. I don't think this applies to music, but I could be incorrect. Doom Eternal, Half-Life Alyx, Ghost of Tsushima, Resident Evil 3, and The Last of Us Part 2. So, yeah, 20 years ago, Resident Evil 3 came out, for those who forgot. Gentlemen, best audio design. Like the little audio details, sound, all of that. What is your
It should
pick?
be Alex.
I don't get this. Wait a minute. When did this stop? So Miles can't be on here then.
No,
No,
Dark
because
Souls
Miles
can't be on
is
here.
nominated in the next one, the next category.
really.
Yes.
So they were eligible. See, that's
It is.
That's wow.
That doesn't make any sense because Dark Souls isn't on here.
Yeah, 3D.
Yeah,
the 3D audio.
I'm not. I don't even love the new Dark Souls as much as I thought I was going to. That should. Resident Evil 3, by the way, did have good audio.
Okay.
Just a FYI, it was actually sort of a spotlight. If that's the one you said you didn't know why it was on here, you sort of hinted at it. But
No, I was more so
Yeah.
like, wow, this game's actually on a list. But yeah.
Oh god, yeah,
I
true,
just
right?
almost
Because that
forgot.
game was like 4 hours long.
Yeah.
I don't. Yeah, this is weird. I have no clue why.
we can
Dark
break the
Souls
rules.
isn't on here.
We can break the rules here.
Nah,
I kind
that's fine.
of want to pick Demon
I mean-
Souls remake. For me, that was like, oh my god.
I don't know. Half-Life. Oh yeah, you haven't played.
I haven't.
Half-Life Alyx is pretty insane.
Yeah, just for me,
Though-
Demon Souls remake, like I always talk about the dragon flying overhead, and you can actually hear him coming from behind you, and then just the
Yeah.
scorch of the fire. You can feel it, and that's a huge achievement in sound, I think.
Yeah. I don't understand why Demon Souls wouldn't be on this. It makes no sense. But Doom Eternal does have the thing when you put the knife in the guy's eyeball, and it makes that it sounds like someone pulling a balloon out, which I did enjoy quite a bit.
Oh,
if I'm
yeah.
being honest.
Oh yeah, the
But-
kind of jelly stomping sounds in Doom
Yes.
Eternal. Yeah, I that's what I was thinking too. I've never played Half-Life Alyx yet, I haven't played Half-Life Alyx yet. But Doom Eternal I would probably pick just because of like the sound that you just get
Eternal
from everything.
gets funnest sound design.
Yeah, for sure.
So
I think Resident Evil will actually take this one though. I just get a feeling.
Oh.
Yeah. Because now that Karak mentions it, at least I remember from the demo, the sound stuck out, which I played twice over. I never played the full game because once I heard it was really short, I didn't want to invest myself in it. Like when it was a couple hours long, it didn't sound appealing. It sounded like they kind of copped out. But that's carrying off of what I felt about Resident Evil 2, which I thought was fantastic. And that audio experience was really good. And so if it's anything like that, it wouldn't surprise me if Resident Evil 3 won here. But Doom Eternal would be my pick because hell yeah.
that's right.
Yeah.
Damn.
Best performance awarded to an individual for voiceover acting, motion, and or performance capture. We've got Ashley Johnson as Ellie, Laura Bailey as Abby. Both of these are for The Last of Us Part 2. Daisuke Tsuji as Jin Sakai in Ghost of Tsushima. Logan Cunningham as Hades in Hades. And Najee Jeter as Miles Morales in, of course, Spider-Man Miles Morales. Now, I have not played Miles Morales, but I have seen other work of Najee Jeter as Miles Morales.
Watch out, Maddie. If you keep saying you haven't played stuff, you might get torn up in the comments.
I know. Well, I haven't played Hades. I haven't played
I'm just
Half-Life
joking.
Alyx.
I'm joking with you because that's what happened to me.
I'm digging my heels in. I'm going to vote for The
Does
Last of Us
Maddie
Part
even
2.
play games?
Now my pick is
Wow.
Laura Bailey.
Another journalist, games journalist, doesn't play games.
I'll make my pick last. What about you guys? What are you feeling for best performance here? What is your pick on the list? And what are you feeling for the winner?
Oh, it is actually. This is time. I have to make my exit here, so I'll make a quick. I got Thanksgiving Part 2, so I do have to. I forgot to mention that at the beginning of the show.
That's
So I
fine.
do
We
have to
got an
make
hour
my
of
exit
you
here.
almost.
That's right. So, of these, none of them really stick out to me as a fantastic performance, and so I'm just. As far as my prediction of who will win, I think Laura Bailey will win as Abby. So
I like that. Yeah, I would go.
and she may deserve it. I thought she'd actually. Abby, I know it's very very controversial, but I thought she was a very compelling character overall, even though the way that I think that they structured the story was kind of stupid.
I liked her half of the story more, so
I'll
just say that.
whoa.
Yeah, I thought it was a lot more interesting.
On that note, I'm sorry, but I must leave you boys.
All right, no problem.
Have a good second turkey day.
Yes, sir.
Second turkey day. It's dessert only, which is a little unfortunate.
Oof.
But I'm still going to go hard,
Yeah,
So
I would.
Yeah. All right. See you guys.
Later.
See ya.
All right, Karak. It's you and I. What is your pick for best performance? If anything.
I mean, dude, I don't even get this.
This is why
honestly,
we love having you here.
I would say Jin then. Dude, I think, man, I'm not a fan of Miles Morales' voice actor as much as a lot of people. His voice was different to me, and I know you said he covered something else. He wasn't just in Miles Morales, right?
No,
you said he was.
I've
heard
his
cartoons or something.
He was in a Spider-Man cartoon where he played as Miles Morales. He was also the same Miles Morales from Spider-Man 2018.
Yeah. So I'm not as big of like him as the lead. That didn't really it wasn't hugely impactful, but I certainly don't think. Yeah, Ghost of Tsushima. Who will win? He's probably right that probably Laura Bailey will win, but yeah, probably Laura Bailey will win. But my personal would be like Ghost of Tsushima. I mean,
interesting.
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
I mean, pick your brain.
I don't remember much of them, to be honest. I don't remember any. I remember there was a side character in Last of Us 2 I really liked. I just don't remember their name, but I liked the side. There was one or two side characters where I was like, and there's a guy who plays in Friday Night Lights as an older alcoholic brother in that show. And he was the dad of Abby. Is Abby's dad. The deer hunter. You remember that? Where they go out, or elk? Was that elk or deer? One of the two, but he's the one who like takes her out and they're trying, or is it elk or deer or zebra? No, zebra. Remember they were trying to get the zebra out of the chain link fence? It was stuck in the fence. Do you remember?
Yeah. Yes.
I actually thought he was good. He actually stuck with me more than them for whatever reason. So I think, and the side characters, some of the characters they met, and that tagged along with them. I don't know how much spoiler there is, but there's other characters. I think they were better than these two. So for my choice on here, it'd be Jin.
Okay. I think my choice on this list would be Laura Bailey as Abby. I feel like there was a lot of range in what she had to do, from like genuine moments to really intense moments to like writhing in pain. And I feel like every time she was on screen, she nailed it. She did a really good job. And so I personally would vote for her. And I hope she does win because she did a really good job. But Najee Jeter as Miles Morales would be a little bit of a runner-up. Next up is Games for Impact. Now, I'll admit, I don't think I've played much on this list, but still, if we want to skip it, we can, if you haven't played anything either. This is for...
I played 2.
Okay. For a thought-provoking game... Oh, sorry.
Oh, I'll just say, of all these, I've played 2, and I actually think Tell Me Why.
Oh, okay, perfect. This is
tell me why was a step up.
For a thought-provoking game with a pro-social meaning or message, we've got If Found, Kentucky Route Zero TV edition, which I've never even actually seen that game before in action. Spiritfarer, Tell Me Why, and Through the Darkest of Times. Now, you say Tell Me Why. This is kind of a Telltale style game, but also Life is Strange style game. I know this one sort of flew under the radar a little bit, sadly. And I know you can get it on Game Pass, right? And so I hope more people do give it a shot because it seems interesting and it seems different. But why'd you pick this one?
Sorry, I was talking over the top of you because I thought when you started reading it said for a thought-provoking game. I can't see the little writing, so I literally thought you were reading the next category. So I wanted to explain.
Like I said earlier on, the connection's spotty, so we're going to be talking over each other a lot this episode. I'm sure
yeah,
people understand.
They're using weird like fonts for everything. For Tell Me Why, I just think it was a step up from Life is Strange 2, which was really forced. Tell Me Why it's pretty much unforced. I had a really good time. Unfortunately, didn't get to, I think I covered a little bit of it, but I didn't get to cover all of it because they released it for us all 5 and then released it to gamers once every week, which I think is the right way to go. I actually think that was a phenomenal way to release the game. So that it's like a movie or a TV show, sorry. So it's like a TV show once a week. But yeah, I just think the characters were more believable. And again, I've only played Kentucky Route Zero TV Edition. I haven't even heard of If Found. Spiritfarer I've definitely heard of. And Through the Darkest of Times I don't think I've heard of.
Okay. Spiritfarer is on Game Pass. I remember when it got revealed at E3 last year, and I saw it and went, oh, fuck. I was like, this looks awesome. I don't know where it fits. I didn't know it was a 4 Impact style game. Like, I didn't know it would have some type of pro-social meaning or message or something thought-provoking about it, because it looked like a standard platformer builder kind of thing. It didn't strike me as something that would have this type of message. So I'm even more curious now because of that. But I will kind of ride your coattails here, and I'll go with Tell Me Why. I feel like the game deserves more attention. I feel like it had a pretty good message from what I've heard, and more people should definitely play it through Game Pass at least. I think that would be an interesting pick. I just realized I'm not even writing down timestamps for these sections. I have to be more on top of that now. I'll have to go back into the show afterwards and jot
or do what I
down.
do. I don't go near perfect within like the 5 minutes and just be like, dude, whatever.
Yeah, I usually try to ballpark it. Yeah, and just give people a general area, kind of like you just said. Maybe not as wide of a range, but enough.
But somewhat within, yeah.
Yeah, there's a good landing. Next up is Best Ongoing Game, awarded to a game for outstanding development of ongoing content that evolves the player experience over time. So games that are multiplayer or whatever and continue to get support. We have Apex Legends, Destiny 2, Call of Duty, Warzone, Fortnite, and No Man's Sky. Those are the 5 picks. What is your guess, and what would you like to see win here out of these
No
5?
Man's Sky for both.
Yeah, I would like to see them kind of. A lot of people have Destiny for that, but I would like to see No Man's Sky kind of complete the bounce back almost, because they've really just kept going when you think about it.
Yeah, it's the amount of support both to get it where it was supposed to be, as well as to add a absolute dude. There's rave planets in that game now. There's 2 planets. Yes, there's 2 planets, a red one and a blue one, that a group of people on a forum found that were near each other, and they had like glow-in-the-dark mushroom forests. So they took basically ownership of them, this massive forum, and made them rave planets, because there's also a synthesizer you can buy in the game. And they have fucking music. Dude, and that's all on top of the VR of sandworms finally being in the game. Yeah, it's to me, if you look at those, some of them have done really well, but not even within the ballpark of No Man's Sky. It's
size and scale.
It's size and scale, and what they've offered above fixing what they should have had day one. It's not just that they've got it to where it's supposed to be. It's that the substance of the game has dramatically changed, as well as the improvements that were expected day one. Mm-hmm. It's just where I feel like Apex Legends, which I enjoyed, but I couldn't even tell you like why to return to it, or Destiny 2, they removed a bunch of the fucking game from Destiny 2. A shit ton of Destiny 2's content is no longer available in Destiny 2. Like, to me, it's a scam. Call of Duty Warzone, I don't know anybody who even plays that fucking game. And then
Dustin,
Fortnite,
who was just
Dustin. And then Fortnite's Fortnite, but it's just, other than YouTubers trying to do reaction videos, like No Man's Sky is just way above all those when it comes to actual substance.
Right.
Personally.
No, I get that. Yeah, I would say No Man's Sky in the terms of what content it offers, because I think you brought up a very subtle but good point on how do you resell someone on a Destiny 2 or a Warzone, like a Battle Royale, which most of these games are. I feel like with No Man's Sky, here's multiplayer, but here's new missions, here's things to do. I feel like they've offered an actual product, so to speak. Yeah. Not that maybe Beyond Light is or isn't. I don't want to speak too authoritatively on that, but I totally get what you mean. That's a really good point there. All right. Apologies if there's a little gap in between our transitions now, just because I got to write down the timestamps. I was telling Dustin and Karak before the show, I really need to get myself like an iPad with a little keyboard so I can just type it up on the side, because I don't have the money for a second monitor. Well, a nice second monitor, I should say. Best Indie. For outstanding creative and technical achievement in a game made outside the traditional publisher system, so an independent studio making their own game and self-publishing. We have Carrion from Phobia Game Studio. We have Fall Guys Ultimate Knockout from Mediatonic. We have Hades from Supergiant Games, Spelunky 2 from Mossmouth LLC, and Spiritfarer from Thunder Lotus Games. Karak, your selection for the indie category, sir?
I mean, sad, but I haven't played any of these. I would say Fall Guys most likely, just from what I hear. I mean, Hades is really high though, but Hades might be a bit of recency bias, not in a bad way. In just that's what they're talking about. I think Fall Guys also might be too shallow for some people, but yeah, best indie, like either one of those could win, and I just don't see how anybody could complain. The other ones I just don't even know enough about.
I don't know. See, Fall Guys to me never clicked. It was a huge social phenomenon. It's still very popular. Obviously not as much so as it was over the summer. But Fall Guys, I mean, it took over for a while. And I don't even think it, like, a lot of people are like, oh, because no one's talking about it as much as they were in its peak hype. Clearly the game's dead. It's like, no, just, people move on, but there's still a definite strong player base there. And that's fascinating to see for an indie team, and for them to kind of fix some of the issues it had so quickly. I wouldn't be surprised if that took it, but Hades' consistent appearance on this list it being on the Game of the Year list, I feel like it steals best indie undoubtedly. All these games I've heard really good things about. Carrion's the only one on this list I look at, and I not that it looks like it's bad or not that it is bad, but I'm more so saying when I looked at it, it's that type of indie game I go, no thanks. Like, I'm not into this, pardon me, but kind of like weird shit. Like, I'm just not. I just come from someone who loves JRPGs and all that shit. It just looks like that level of weirdness that wouldn't attract me.
Right.
But that's the beauty of indies. I think they can make whatever they want. They're not restricted by anything other than their own creativity and a budget. And so it's cool that a game like that exists. But outside of that, I think anything on this list winning is good news. That's kind of the cool part about the best indie category. Mm-hmm. There's really no loser there. The fact that all of them are being recognized as good. But Spiritfarer again, Karak. I've got to get to that one. Bring it to the show here. Share the good word. Best mobile game. Best mobile game. This is one that I said we'd get to later on because the first entry on the best mobile game list is Among Us. Now, we talked about this last week, and I still think it's really, really weird that a game from 2018, I don't care if it got popular as shit in 2020, game that came out in 2018 is on this list. I don't think it's right. I think they just need to make a new category or just give it an outright award for, between it and Fall Guys of like most surprising takeover in 2020, something like that. But there's Among Us, Call of Duty Mobile, Genshin Impact, Legacy of Runeterra, and Pokemon Cafe Mix. I don't know how much you game on mobile, Karak, but if you are to make a pick here, what do you surmise it'll be?
Yeah, I do play a lot on like the phone and tablet, but not these games. But I will say that the time I spent with Genshin Impact and the amount of people where it had an impact on, pun intended, I don't see how, like Genshin Impact, a lot of people absolutely felt that was a amazing free title with no real, costs associated with it, and had a blast. Like in fact, they just brought it up in the morning in this Discord this morning, and we're talking about it. So to me, that feels like probably the best one. Of all those, it's the only one I even hear about. I don't even hear about Among Us other than the PC version. becoming a big deal. Wasn't it the PC version on Steam becoming a big deal? I mean, it might be a big deal on mobile too, but I just don't know.
Yeah, PC it was there as well, and I think that's where most people played it. Like they streamed it and stuff. That's why I think Among Us is just weird because it's sort of tucked in there. It almost doesn't make sense. It's more like PC is definitely the more broad platform. Just the interesting part is you can download it for free on phones. For me personally, I would pick Genshin Impact as well. I wish I liked it as much as other people did. What kind of happened is I played it and then wished I had been able to pay $60 for that game and kind of stripped its monetization elements out, because they do a really good job of not ham-fisting them, stuffing them in everywhere. But it's still a game that makes it clear it needs to make its money. And there's certain parts where it could have been created differently if maybe it were just allowing you to pay for it. And anything that you can pay for in the game absolutely does impact your gameplay, which it's a single-player game in the scheme of things, so that's fine. But it's one of those games that I wish I liked it more. I really do wish I liked it more. Makes me sad. But the art in that game is just fantastic, and it's all weeby. It just clicks with me, Karak, on some level, but not fully. All right, let's see what we've got here next. Next is best ongoing community support. Now, I thought there was kind of an interesting snuff here that might be a hot take, but best community support is recognizing a game for outstanding community support, transparency, and responsiveness, including of social media activity and game updates slash patches. Apex Legends, Destiny 2, Fall Guys, Fortnite, No Man's Sky, and Valorant. So this is a 6 entry category here. And we'll start off with you, right? I'll save my take for after. But what would you pick for when they say best community support? I think that's very odd wording. It's just pretty much what developer communicated what they were doing, and like best, so to speak. I wouldn't pick any of those games. That's just me.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know I actually had more fun with Valorant than I think almost anybody did. I remember talking to somebody and I was like, man, I'm enjoying this. And they're like, shit, I fucking hate it. But I don't know anything about their transparency or anything. And No Man's Sky, they are not necessarily transparent on purpose. In fact, they sort of go into, they state what they're doing, but they sort of go into a bit of a sheltered mode. So I don't even know why they're on this list. Fortnite, I don't know. I mean, the only one I know that I hear about their back and forth a lot is Destiny, and I actually hear mostly negative stuff. So, like, maybe Apex Legends, because I actually do feel like I hear a lot of, like, yeah, I don't know on this one. I don't really have a good answer. I would say Apex Legends just because I don't hear as much negativity about their back and forth as I do about Destiny. Like, that's
right.
And the other ones I don't hear about at all in this format.
For me, my actual pick, excluding this list, would 100% be actually Fallout 76. I think that is a game that I said this back in 2018 when they had this whole system with Inside the Vault, and they just released these huge write-ups of patch notes, and then they eventually added, I think 2019, developer write-ups as to why they made certain decisions. And I think with 2020, they mentioned here, inclusive of social media activity and game updates / patches, I think Wastelanders was a really strong attempt at a bounce back. Was it perfect? No. But I think it put the game in the right area where when you started to get things like daily ops and you started to get things like scoreboards and then you get Steel Dawn, I feel like the game's picking up steam. Sadly, not many people are talking about it. And this is what happens when you rush your game out and it fucking sucks. Like, that's absolutely the case. But we kind of saw a similar thing in the sense of, I don't want to say rushing it out, but not delivering on something with No Man's Sky, which is on a lot of these lists. I just think when it comes to community support, the 76 community has always been really good. They've always been a really, like, vocally supportive community. And so, I don't know. I felt like that was kind of a bit of a snub, but I totally get why, because the game had its chance if it really fucked up. But that would be my personal pick. On everything of this list here, I agree with you. Destiny 2, that one I hear so much back and forth on. I'm not really sure. I would honestly say probably Fall Guys, because that for
true, they have a lot of back and forth that's positive.
Yeah, just for social media engagement as well. Just they were messing with celebrity streamers.
Yeah,
they were promoting people, helping build channels. They literally were on ESPN. I don't know. I feel like they were everywhere, man. They did exactly what good community support would be defined as, and it came out this year. So that would be my pick. We always have that one surprising game. All right, next up on the list is best VR/AR game. So virtual reality here, or alternate reality. We have Dreams, or I'm sorry, augmented reality, not alternate. Dreams, Half-Life Alyx, Iron Man VR, Star Wars Squadrons, and The Walking Dead Saints and Sinners. Now, every time I see Walking Dead Saints and Sinners, I think of that fucking video you made, dude, where you were just laughing your ass off the whole time.
Killing zombies. Yeah.
That was probably my favorite video you've ever made. I was cracking up watching you just do shit and go, like, it just constant, like, I think it was 8 minutes long of just, you just fucking laughing it up. You were having the best time. That was so funny.
Yeah, it also shows the strength of VR because, I mean, all those games are actually really good. Like, really good. I actually think it's weird because Half-Life Alyx is a full story for sure and a full game, but Walking Dead has like not replayability because you can go back to places and, you know, scavenge, which I really like that in the VR title. I actually had a really good time. A lot of little NPCs to get jobs from, and then Star Wars Squadrons wasn't bad at all. It just wasn't super deep. And then Iron Man, I wasn't as in love with it as a lot of people, but actually, dude, flying around in Iron Man is pretty fucking sweet.
Okay.
It's pretty sweet. There were a couple issues, and it's PSVR, which is rough, like super low res. But they actually got the feeling of being Iron Man pretty well done with like even controlling his holographic computers and fucking looking around his house and then going out and doing battle. And so all those are good. But I would say, I mean, Half-Life Alyx, I don't see Half-Life Alyx losing. I just don't. It's a full game.
Yeah. Hard to argue that one.
Yeah, it's very hard to argue that.
Yeah, like that's kind of what people wanted from VR since day one, or what they envisioned. They knew it would be a process.
Yep.
So yeah, Half-Life Alyx, obvious pick there. Next is a very interesting category. This is innovation in accessibility, recognizing software and/or hardware that is pushing the medium forward by adding features, technology, and content to help games be played and enjoyed by an even wider audience. This is one that's kind of risen up in the conversation quite a bit lately. Really, I think, hitting its breaking point with Sekiro. So we've got Assassin's Creed Valhalla, Grounded. Pretty interesting nomination there. For those who don't know, Grounded had a arachnophobia meter you could tweak if you were afraid of spiders, and I thought that was kind of a cool thing for them to do. Hyperdot, The Last of Us Part 2, Watch Dogs, Legion. I think Ubisoft did a really good job. I didn't shout out my Legion review, but I shouted out in my Valhalla review that I think Ubisoft's doing a really good job of, when you boot the game up, giving you lots of options from text size to everything that you can tweak to make it as accessible as possible. But I think out of everything on this list, The Last of Us Part 2, hands down, bar none, did a phenomenal job. I mean, there were people who like originally couldn't game or had to like heavily tweak their experience, and The Last of Us Part 2 just covered everything. Like, there were so many articles being posted about that from their respective communities. And so I think that one is a pretty shining achievement in accessibility. That would be my pick, and I hope that one does win.
Yeah, it's not even close. I mean, I think Valhalla, I think Ubisoft's always actually pretty ahead, but that game's ridiculous. The amount of people beat it blind. There's all kinds of crazy stuff. Yeah, high contrast modes of all kinds. Like, it allowed a bunch of people to get into. I think there's even maybe not that game. There's another game that's one hand mode. So I don't know if it's that one, but there's it's just crazy. I'll be right back. Feel free to read the best action. I'll just be right back.
Sure. All right. Next one up for us is, as Karak said, best action. So I'll take the reins for this one. You're stuck with me. It says, for the best game in the action genre focused primarily on combat. So this ought to be a good one. Doom Eternal, Hades, Half-Life Alyx, Neo 2, and Streets of Rage 4. This is a great category here. A lot of stuff to love here. I haven't played Hades or Half-Life Alyx. I gotta fucking play Hades. That's gonna be our hashtag for the show. Hopefully I remember, because we still got, let's count it up here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 more categories to go. So provided I woke up at 4:30 this morning and I only slept till about 9:50. So yeah. Did I say I woke up at 4:30? I went to sleep at 4:30. Woke up at 9:50. So as you can tell, I'm fried. I can't talk. Positively fried. God, I need Karak here to balance me out so I don't talk too much. All right. So my pick for this list, I am actually going to go with the hot take. I'm going to go with Neo 2. I thought this game, out of everything here, was extremely fun to play. Not that other selections aren't. I think you're making a good choice no matter what. But I genuinely think, as an action game, Neo 2 was the most fun to play here, from what I've experienced. I love the builds, how each weapon felt. The enemy variety was good. The boss fights were amazing. It had so much content. I really thoroughly enjoyed Neo 2. So that would be my pick. And Karak has just arrived. Karak,
sorry,
for
man,
best
I had
action.
to go wee. Too much.
You are good.
This is like the third 2-liter of the day. And in the last podcast, I was like, man, I got to go. And I went, and then I was sitting here and I scrolled at how many categories there were. When you were reading the last one, I was like, there's no chance. Like, I'm already in pain. I was like, I couldn't even concentrate on anything else. All right.
No, dude, we got 5 left. So I think you're good. And if you ever got to go, like, I know I don't got to give you permission, but you can always just like,
yeah, but I thought, I was like, well, there can't be that many. And then I scrolled down. I was like, there's fucking thousands of categories. And she's like, dude, Neo 2 is awesome. And I heard you saying that. Like, I mean, even though I liked Half-Life, but like Neo, man, that game I wish I had covered more. I can't remember if I got a late code or got busy. Oh, and I also faced off that one of the first dudes. I fought like what, 192 times?
Yeah, I remember you saying that. You fought them 100, something.
I finally got him, and then never had an issue after that. I don't know if I can't remember. Oh, I know. I had set up my build wrong, but I also did not have it online, and so there was no people. You couldn't hire anybody. Like there was no red or blues. You couldn't even fight anybody. So I couldn't fight anybody or hire anybody, and I was just getting smoked by that dude.
Right.
I would honestly say that one as well. It's also the only one of all these I've returned to a couple times already, just to play around. It also feels like one of the better Dark Souls style games, for not feeling completely lacking in dexterity for your character. It feels really good control wise. So I like that one a lot. Neo 2 is really, really good.
Yeah. That's what I picked as well, because I think of all the different weapons you can use and the kind of I forgot what they called them, like the Wraith mode, the demon form you could transform into.
Yeah, the demon mode. Yep.
Yeah, the bosses, the mechanics of all the weapons. I really like Doom Eternal. I feel like that's probably an easy win for them. Maybe Hades as well, but I just think for me, Neo 2 is such a great action game. It's exactly what I look for in my action games personally. All right. Chugging on along here. Action Adventure is next. Best action adventure game combining combat with traversal and puzzle solving. We've got Assassin's Creed Valhalla, Ghost of Tsushima, Marvel's Spider-Man, Miles Morales. So here it is again. So
wait, how's Ghost of Tsushima on here?
Yeah, puzzle solving. That's
No, is Ghost of Tsushima 2020?
Yeah. Ghost of Tsushima?
Oh, sorry. Do you know what I'm reading? In my brain, I said Ghost of Tsushima, or in my mouth, but in my brain, I was reading Sekiro. And I was like, what is fucking wrong with these categories? Anyway, continue. I apologize.
No, you're good. Marvel Spider-Man Miles Morales, so next-gen titles are here.
Yeah.
Ori and the Will of the Wisps is in the best action-adventure category, as is Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. Here it is. And The Last of Us Part 2. So this is a 6-entry category. Again, one of the tougher choices, I would say. A lot of good stuff here. What would you pick? I mean, you're winning either way, I think.
Yeah, I would say this is probably the best choice, though I don't in any way, shape, or form think Assassin's Creed Valhalla should be on here, but fuck it, whatever. Everybody disagrees. Well, not everybody disagrees with me, but a large contingent.
Really? See, I thought that was a strong contender based off their description. Traversal and puzzle solving, I thought it was pretty engaging on both areas.
I'm at that game, sometimes where you just aren't agreeing with everybody else. I'm just like,
I've been in those.
Yeah. That's for Valhalla. That for whatever reason is for me. I'll return to it though, for sure. Like it'll be one of those ones that in a year or something. But here, dude, Spider-Man's hard to beat. I don't necessarily know why. Like, is there a platformer? Because Ori should, of course, be on that if there's a best platformer.
I didn't see one when I scrolled down.
Weird. So, man, that's a hard. These are all good. Even Last of Us. Man, that's a hard. I wasn't as big of a fan of Star Wars either, near as big as everybody else. So I would actually say, see, the problem is Miles is short. It's good, but it's short. And I know a lot of people liked it more than Spider-Man. I didn't. Might be because it was short. I'd say Ghost for me personally. I felt Ghost was super fresh, and even the multiplayer returning to it for free, I jumped right back into it and just still found it hyper enjoyable. So probably Ghost for me.
I don't know if it's me just liking Star Wars. I do kind of I find myself wanting out of all of these here to pick Jedi Fallen Order. I feel like I really enjoyed its puzzles. It kind of had that Tomb Raider element. They weren't super heavy, though, as a Tomb Raider game, but it reminded me of that. I liked, going around the planets, its sense of openness, its little secrets tucked away everywhere. Even if the collectibles, we talked about this last week, weren't that great.
Fucking ponchos. 70 different colors of ponchos.
Yeah, just terrible. But I think out of all these games here, that one resonated with me the most. I do think, though, that Marvel Spider-Man Miles Morales or Last of Us Part 2 will end up taking this category home. Yeah, for sure. I think it's a pretty safe bet there. But I wouldn't mind if Assassin's Creed Valhalla just swept in and took it away. Next is, I almost said action adventure again, Best RPG. For best game design with rich player character customization and progression, including massive multiplayer experiences, which I don't think, I think only one of these might be. We have Final Fantasy VII Remake, Genshin Impact, Persona 5 Royal, Wasteland 3, Yakuza Like a Dragon.
For me, I think it's, if I have to pick Wasteland 3 had a lot of tech issues, but I would still say Wasteland 3 is probably on here because I didn't do Persona Royale like you did. And Yakuza Like a Dragon was good, but I don't know what it was about Like a Dragon. Over time, the turn-based wasn't as, it didn't stick with me as much as I thought it would. Genshin I didn't get enough time with, and Remake's pretty high in the list. Yeah, for me, I'd go with Wasteland 3. Dude, I just really liked despite its issues, I really liked a lot about Wasteland 3. So for me, it would be that. And there was a lot of role playing. So in Wasteland 3, you got to role play your own people. In Final Fantasy, you're role playing somebody else. And in Genshin Impact, guys, there's no role playing at all. Right? Yeah. Is there? Or am I going crazy? The's no role playing.
I think role playing is such a broad term. It could be role playing, like playing the role of a character or playing the role of yourself, or it's just, hey, there's progression here. It's really broad. Yeah, I think a lot of people thought I'd pick Persona 5 for this, but honestly, I don't. I love Persona because it is an RPG as well, but it's not the main draw for me.
Is the grindiness the main draw? Or not grindiness, you know what I mean? The mechanics of it.
Yeah, the mechanics. Yeah. I think it's just such a well-made game, from all angles. Of course, the role-playing helps it a lot, but putting it up against Wasteland 3, I think is almost unfair because Wasteland 3 is such a fucking good role-playing game. A lot of people always talk about, the illusion of choice. It's not real in games. It's just, there's a limit. But Wasteland 3 successfully makes it feel like it's limitless. The world is always doing something because you did something. And I cannot speak highly of it enough. They did a good job patching it out. It was a little buggy. But it is one of the best role-playing games I've played. It is really good. And I don't say that lightly.
Did you know you can kill the fucking dude, the main guy at the starting who kills the fucking the dude with the hammer and the flag?
Yeah, the
you can kill him.
Yeah,
dude. And they have some special storyline thing for that. It's just like, by the way, that's like a thing Far Cry joked about in 4 or whatever, where you wait and then, or you can it's 3, 4, and 5. Like 1 you can wait, and then the other you can kill the guy or something.
Yeah, I think it was 4. You were at the dinner table, and if you didn't do something,
if Megan Pin waited and you waited, the game was over or something like that. There's these little things. But fucking Wasteland 3 is like, nah, man, go ahead and kill him. And he's like one of the major quest givers. I mean, that game is insane. It is. Mm-hmm. There is so much chops there, and it makes look like they all lack choice, which I think is super exciting because I want to see. I want some peanut butter in my chocolate.
Yeah,
it would be cool if we're like in a joint venture, Bethesda and In Exile are making Fallout 5 or whatever. I think people just absolutely shit a biscuit. So,
dude, I would be. What's interesting is I've looked at job listings, and In Exile's next game is it seems a first-person shooter, and it is going to be like a AAA level game because they are an Xbox game studio. So I imagine after Wasteland 3, which didn't really feel like it had the tightest budget, graphically, they updated the cutscenes where some moments were more drawn in and fully animated.
Yeah, right.
Just the amount of builds. And of course, people sometimes just look at the game and go like graphics, low budget, high budget, but the amount of things they account for in the game and scenes they create that you just outright will miss. Like, it's not even, you might miss them. You cannot see everything in a single playthrough or even multiple. The game had a lot of money put into it. And so to see them now mess around with a AAA budget is going to be really exciting. Highly, highly recommend those of you who have not, please do play Wasteland 3.
Yeah. For sure.
Really good game. Even if you look at these types of top-down experiences, these isometric RPGs, and go, not for me. I do believe Wasteland 3 has a speed to it that other games don't, because the enemy's turn all happens at once. So it's very much everyone comes at you, goes to cover or shoots or whatever, and within, I'd say, 10 seconds, control's back in your hands. It's really very quick. So you're always plotting, planning, moving, shooting, looting, questing, that type of stuff. There's a pace there that they intentionally designed in the game. Highly, highly recommended. All right. Next is the fighting game category. Oh my gosh. This shit is terrible, like I said earlier. So let's go through it. We got Grand Blue Fantasy versus Mortal. Can't read right now. Combat 11 Ultimate, Street Fighter 5 Championship Edition, One Punch Man, A Hero Nobody Knows, and Under Night in Birth EXE Late CL-R. Fucking hell of a name there. But I have played Under Night in Birth. It is a solid game. I mean, 2 of these games here have been re-released, so it shows you how barren fighting games currently are. One of them, as I mentioned earlier, and I know Metacritic's not always the place to go to for all of your video game needs, but when you see something that a 3.3 user score with not the highest amount of reviews, where it's not being review bombed, it's just people who played it and went, I don't like this, it's definitely a little alarming. That's in the category. But Karak, still, we need to discuss, as we have been this entire show, what is your pick?
Is Mortal Kombat 11 this year? Not the Ultimate, but is the original Mortal Kombat 11 this year?
That was last year.
So they re-released it as a DLC package, which is why I got their email, I guess, now that I think about it, because they were like, hey, we've got an Ultimate, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, what? I've played this. So what? So they re-released everything, and now it's on the best fighting list. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's why I think it's horseshit that Persona 5 was getting shit on for being a re-release, because there's so many fucking re-releases and remakes on this list. On these lists, rather. Sorry, plural.
You know, I got to admit, because I'm sure I want to make sure I'm clear on something. I'm negative when I feel that there's a real reason to be negative. And I'm sure there's probably somebody who's like, especially, I apologize, because I really had to pee. So I wasn't talking a bunch there for a couple categories, but I'm really negative on this because I feel that maybe it's gaming this year too, but there isn't a lot of choices here. And then that compounds with the way they do it, not including December and November, but then also including Miles. Like, and not others, like Dark Souls, what have you. Now, again, I don't know how they choose, but something like this is pretty barren for choice. So I think Mortal Kombat 11 is a pretty good game. So, like, I would just say Mortal Kombat 11 just because that's the only one I know. I think Street Fighter is so done. Like, I want it gone. There's no enjoyment with a Street Fighter for me anymore. I haven't played Under Dark, and I'm not even reading all the rest of that. One Punch Man is shit. I have that game.
You really? Wow.
That game's, and by the way, whoever rated it a 3.3 is way, way higher than it should be. That game is bad. Lower. No, that game is bad. Like, it's barely a game. It's unacceptable as like to be released. So 3.3 is pretty high. And then Grand Blue, those get pretty good. Those do pretty well, don't they? I thought Grand Blue does pretty well. I haven't played that one.
Grand Blue, I did play. I think Arc System and Cygames, they're really good. And Grand Blue, this is the first time outside of, I think, the mobile game, it's come to the West. Actually, what's funny is Platinum Games did a Grand Blue game that's in Japan still, and that game looked really cool. And so this, I think, might have been a taste test to see how a Western audience responds. I don't think doing it in a fighting game was smart. But as someone who played it, I really liked it. I thought it was great. It just didn't have the largest character roster. So I don't like the re-release shit personally, in the sense of like MK11, like, hey, here is actually not like, because I know some people will call contradictory on me, but something like MK11 versus Persona 5 Royal, I think they're two different things. Like, one got DLC, one got like 40 hours more of content.
Nothing in Ultimate's new. That's a repackage of the DLC.
That's what I'm saying.
They told me that's what it was.
Exactly. So I would pick, and I do want Grand Blue Fantasy Versus to win. I think it is the actual, on this list, by the way, outside of Under Night In Birth, it is A, an actual fighter, and B, I think the only good new fighter that's come out this year.
Yeah.
MK11 is like last year, that's a steal, right? I thought MK11 was fucking awesome. I know people had issues with its crypt, which I totally understand. But, this year, really barren category, I would pick Grand Blue. I think it's a good game. It has a cool RPG mode. It kind of turns it into a side-scrolling beat-em-up using like the whole moveset you have for the fighter. And as you level up, you increase like the skills, the command skills you have, and you get more health bars and you get more strength. It's cool. It's really cool. I always thought that Arc System had cool ideas, and I know Cygames did most of the development for this, but Arc System has really good single player ideas. Like, we saw some of that in Blaze Blue, and so they carried some of that over. Also in Persona 4 Arena, they did a really good job.
I just hope we're not seeing not the death knell of fighters, but Virtual Fighter said, or Sega said, oh, we're doing a new Virtual Fighter, and then Sega sold all their shares to some other company, and now you wonder where that is. You have Mortal Kombat as a re-release, Street Fighter as the 55,000th fucking game in that series, and then you have these, I don't know what you call them, AA. These are the Vampire of RPG games, or of fighting games, right?
Yeah,
they're like B level, right? Or maybe B level, or maybe AA, but mostly B level.
Mm-hmm.
I just hope that's not what we're stuck with. And I don't mean stuck with like they're bad, because it sounds like one or two of them were good. It's just, I don't want this to die as a genre, because actually, if they're good, Injustice, that kind of stuff, these are the shit. These are the bomb.
They're fun.
Me.
Yeah, they're really fun. They're highly replayable too.
But it feels like, I'm just going to be honest, it feels a little bit like they're hinging too much on anime stuff. I get why they do that, because hey, it's like we can hinge Dragon Ball, we can hinge all those fans. Well, yeah, if it's good, we've had a couple shit ones. So
yeah, you're 100% right.
I would love to see this category grow to better choices than 2 remakes, a shit game, and 2 that just they're not popular enough to even be on anybody's,
Exactly.
radar.
Yeah, it's a shame. It's a shame, because there's so many great properties out there. Like, why there isn't a good TMNT fighting game? Why isn't there a good Marvel fighting game? I think that makes a lot of sense. They tried Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite, but that game was not good.
TMT, there's more than enough characters, just like, if ignoring just the turtles. I mean, it's had a comic book with multiple bad guys introduced.
Yeah, there's so much there. Yeah, there's so many universes that are ripe for a fighting game. And I don't think it's a dying genre, because you look at like Evo, that's probably the most well-known kind of gaming event, in my opinion. People who don't watch fighting games or play fighting games because like the commentary is really hype and the moments are big and the stadium's loud. Like, I think people love watching fighting games, and it's like a big thing, and it's been since like the birth of gaming, like 2D fighting games. So I feel like there's still room. It's just they need new brands, and you're totally right. There's, as someone who likes anime fighting,
do Killer Instinct too, bro.
Yeah, there you go. Like,
right?
There's just so much stuff lying dormant. I don't think they're bad investments.
I don't think so either, but I'm honestly wondering a little bit if it's also the technical factoring that goes in with audiences these days. So like when you watch a League of Legends, you'll see people be like, he used his AOL 3.2 seconds or 3.2 milliseconds quicker than he should have against this fucking 55th character that's in a roster. And you're like, what? Like, if you don't follow it, you're all, I have no fucking clue what you're even talking about. With Fighters 2D, I think it's easy for people to see even more. And there's a picking apart that happens. I see some YouTubers who are like, technically this is 2.3 frames, blah, blah, blah. And I'm wondering if sometimes a developer is like, Jesus, dude, we sort of just want to have a fighter. Like, so do you aim for Evo or do you aim for Mortal Kombat? Because Mortal Kombat, I don't think they aim for Evo. They try to make it, you know what I mean? They're not
make it competitive, but don't make it so
tight.
Competitive. It's not fun. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, you've even bitched about it. About games I like where you're like, dude, the projectile in Injustice 2 online is terrible or whatever, so obviously, but yeah, I wonder if they're worried about the aiming for it, because why haven't we heard about Killer Instinct, which I believe, if I could be wrong, I thought Killer Instinct was actually pretty considered to be like one of the games people wanted it in Evo or whatever. If it wasn't even at I thought it was at a couple. And
I think so. There's always local fighting tournaments, but I feel like that's the thing with fighting games is if you're not an anime fighting game and you're somewhat of like a brand, I think it's really easy to get scooped up and get a community going unless you really drop the ball like Capcom did with Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite. I think that's the only time I can really think where you had this kind of meshing of brands and it should have worked, and it had worked in the past, but they just clearly got either lazy with it or didn't do a good enough job. And it didn't feel as good as the other games. And so people shied away from it. Like, fighting game communities are often not like the stars of them where they all stick on one game. A lot of them shift from game to game and just like to compete with their friends in the next thing. And so that's why I think, making a big brand fighter, I'm surprised we don't see more of that.
Yeah, I'd like to know. I might look up diaries and see if maybe Killer Instinct, because that's one of the newer ones. See if somebody's done a developer diary of like what, maybe there's a difficulty. It could be online lag too. There might be something where they're just like,
I just feel like the online's better now between the new consoles. I know not many people have adopted them yet, but I just feel like I do know that fighting games tend to have lull years, like they just kind of ebb and flow.
Yeah, and that's might be what we're looking at right now. It just feels like Mortal Kombat was last year and now it's again this year, which is why I got worried, if that makes sense.
I guess
it's like when you see that pop up twice, you're like, wait, where is everybody? Like going to the party twice, going to the prom twice.
All right. Next up, we've got Sim Strategy. Best focus on.
Wait, you missed family. You missed family.
Who, I'm sorry, Karak. I did not.
Did you miss that on purpose?
I did miss that on purpose.
Okay, hang on. Crash Bandicoot 4. Okay, you're good. I just wanted to make sure there wasn't like something there, but you're absolutely.
I
apologize.
No. You don't have to apologize. It was my I don't give a fuck decision, right?
Nah, I give it. There's we're good.
Yeah.
Continue. Pretend.
Okay.
Just cut that out.
No, you're good. No, I'm just gonna leave it because this is how their show flows, right? Best sim/strategy. Best game focused on real-time or turn-based simulation or strategy gameplay, irrespective of platform. We've got Crusader Kings 3. One that I think a lot of our listeners enjoy. Desperados 3. Gears Tactics. Microsoft Flight Simulator. And XCOM Chimera Squad. Very interesting category here.
Shit, this is the strongest category so far.
Yeah, right. Like this has got a lot of variety. It's got a lot of cool stuff.
Every one of these games is good. That's redonkulous. Desperados 3 is so fucking good. People do not even understand how good that game is. Man. Wow. Microsoft. Damn. Damn.
It was interesting, actually. You know what I'm realizing now? I actually haven't played any of these games. Each of these games I've looked at and gone like, oh, this looks like one for me. This looks like one for me. I'm playing Gears Tactics
or Desperados would fit you more than any, or maybe XCOM. But like, I can see Crusader Kings maybe not be anything. And Flight Simulator requires a beefer of a computer.
Yeah. I think I want to play Gears Tactics at some point this year. That's one that I love XCOM style gameplay. I've always been a really big fan of it. And I just think the Gears universe, like them trying that is really cool. And I want to support that if I can. But I don't know. I actually don't have enough hands-on to talk about any of these games other than I know Crusader Kings 3 is like fucking ridiculously deep on so many levels that I just wanted to win. Like I remember Coach Blue writing in, telling us about his experience, what you've said. Just this game seems wild. And I'd love to see it take home some gold.
I honestly would have no issue with like any of these. I think XCOM's the odd man out, even though I liked it. It's nowhere near the like critical acclaim of the others. But man, I mean, probably Crusader Kings, just because, dude, that game is so that game is so fun. It is one-person D&D. It is so redonkulously good. People do not get it. But Desperados 3, if people haven't tried a turn-based, and dude, Desperados 3 has some story. Oh, you know what? Desperados 3 even added a whole bunch of DLC. Yeah, either one of those. Desperados 3 is fucking so good. I don't know, because Crusader Kings might be too deep. And I mean
right.
Yeah, even with the developer had to DM me. And I admit, I'm not the smartest fucking, person, but I assume I usually know what I'm doing. And that game I was bouncing off of redonkulously. I could not figure out what was going on. And I couldn't parse it. And when the guy DM'd me and explained it, it was like instant, where I was all, oh fuck, I wish they had just written that like in the first 5 seconds of the game. But Desperados 3 you can get into regardless. And so I could see either one of those winning without, and I would have no issues. In fact, I don't really have a choice between those two. Other than Crusader Kings, if you give it time, if you like D&D, if you give it time, it's the narrative that comes out of that is unbelievable. I mean,
I really want to look into it just to see.
You can tell your friends stories that they will just be like, that can't possibly have happened in a game. And you're like, no, that all happened in a game.
That's awesome.
Like, and it happened in 4 hours. It sounds like a epic yarn of centuries of life in 4 hours. And when you tell them, they're just like, and I think a lot of people think that's bullshit. Because, you could play a game, right? You could pretend there was more going on. Like, you could play a Fallout 4 and pretend there was more choice than there really was just because you like the game. Crusader Kings, there is that much. Like, that's why it was so difficult for me to get into right away.
Yeah, man. Very interesting. The last section I wanted to talk about, And then we'll move on to patron questions because I know we're probably going to have a decent amount of those. There are still other categories like multiplayer and shit, but
yeah, we can skip those. I'll scroll down and look at those as you read this next one and just verify there isn't one I want to talk about.
Okay. Go ahead and let me know. We have best sports/racing for the best traditional and non-traditional sports and racing games, which feature Dirt 5, F1 2020. What's interesting is as both of these come from Codemasters, just different studios from Codemasters. FIFA 21, NBA 2K 21, and Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2. It's gotta be Tony Hawk, yeah?
Yeah, because I would say.
I mean, I've heard great things about Dirt 5. I should say that. I've heard really, like, people returning to the game. I've seen that a lot online. Maybe that's not something you share, but I have seen that before. I don't know if you can comment on that.
Yeah, but not to the height of Tony Hawk. Like that remake, in fact, I think I've used it in a couple of videos where I'm like, what other game do you want to see the Tony Hawk style remaster?
Okay.
You know,
like it's
remake. So it's like that's
a bar.
Yeah. I mean, and NBA 2K shouldn't even be in here. It is not a best anything. So FIFA, I heard was okay. I don't know much about. I do know that F1. A couple of my friends play F1. It might be this one, but I know it's 19. They for sure have played. And dude, the amount of like what's going on in that game is, if I had time, I would play it, but is pretty fucking high. What surprises me on this is, from what I heard, I thought WRC 9 was good, the rally game, and I'm surprised we don't see that on here. But I would say Tony Hawk
for NBA,
right? Like I don't even get why that. Thank God UFC's not on here. If it was, I'd just kill somebody. But dude, I didn't know if it was going to be on here because I don't know. I don't trust any of those fuckers. But yeah, Tony Hawk.
They,
for sure.
they hit a 5 category or 5 entry minimum for this one, despite the amount of choices they have. I'd go with Tony Hawk Pro Skater 1 and 2. I think that's just stupidly obvious from all levels. It's just better, sets the standard in a couple of ways. Nostalgia's there. And how often do we see a good skateboarding game nowadays when you really think about it? It's quite infrequent. Back when I was a kid, it was like every fucking year there was a new Tony Hawk game. So it's pretty fresh now. So I think that's going to work in its favor.
SSX, Tony Hawk, Amped. There's a lot of those kind. Amped being my favorite, but they sort of died out.
Yeah.
Oh, dude, Cadiz, one of my friends on Discord, he bought me 3, which was make your own parks and stuff. And I remember just feeling like we had arrived. There was just enough customization, but it was also just you could pick your own music. I mean, that game, all those games, SSS Tricky. I know people love that as well. And then they just died. They all sort of just went
I feel like they saw the money in maybe the Sims, like the big Sims, like a MLB The Show or whatever, and they just went after that. I think a lot of the market forgot about games like the Midway sports games, the Rocket Leagues of our generation, so to speak.
Arcade sim.
Yeah, you know, keeping the fun of the sport in a way where someone who doesn't like sports can pick it up and like a Mario Strikers or a Mario Tennis and get into it. And then maybe it'll gateway them to the sport, or it's just a way for them to enjoy something different. I feel like that's still something that's so untapped. I feel like it's so untapped in our industry. You know, just this, you know, it's like now instead what you're going to see is people trying to make their own Rocket League instead of trying to make their own fun sports game. And like if they brought back like Backyard Baseball or something like that, the Backyard series, or did a Backyard Collection.
They do the Mega. Admittedly, I do play the shit out of that Mega Super Baseball game. Number 3 just came out.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's actually not bad. It's not bad. I think it was the fucking actor Freddie Prinze Jr. was talking about number 2 a lot, and I follow him and talk to him on Twitter. And then 3 came out, and Mega Super Baseball or something, but it's the big head dudes. Admittedly, man, that's not a bad game. And it's sort of simmy, sort of arcade. But I agree with you. I think those games, people assume that they're cheap. And so I think you can't charge a good amount of money, if that makes sense.
Gotcha.
So I think companies shy away because they're like, you know, it may take a lot of money to make. Who knows? And maybe that's why we're not getting a bunch.
All right. Well, with that, our picks are done. And we move on into the patron question section, where it seems like good news for us, Karak, for once. There aren't 1,000,001 submissions. It looks like we have 15 messages. So let's take the dive right in, starting off with H.R. Rhodes. Or H. Rhodes?
H. Rhodes.
Sure. Yeah. H. Rhodes 1518. With the Microsoft purchase, I had one question that no one I've seen has discussed. Between Obsidian, inXile, and Bethesda, and with the success of Wasteland 3, could we also see a new ISO Fallout game made by all three of them in tandem?
It'd be my best day of my fucking life.
It would be, right? If they just all
because Icewind Dale, dude. I think he means like an Icewind Baldur's Gate kind of game from them, and I'm a huge, because he said Ice Dale, right? Isn't that what he said? Is that what
no? He said ISO Fallout game, isometric Fallout game.
I'm so into those games. When you said ISO, I thought you meant Icewind Dale
over there.
Yeah. But anyway, regardless, yes. I mean, we talked about this when we were talking a little earlier.
Yeah, we actually did. We did cover this, Rhodes. But yeah, in answer to your question, a lot of people want that. Some combination of forces. It would be Bethesda and someone else. That's kind of the idea here, because Bethesda does own the Fallout IP, so they'd have to be involved on some level. But whether it's Bethesda and Obsidian, which I think a lot of folks want, or Bethesda and inXile, which I think is very underrated and has a lot of potential there, I think one of these will be researched at one point or another.
Don't you feel too, just between me and you, and whoever's listening now that I think about it, but it feels to me like there might be a little less of a, not competition, but a little less of an issue if it was inXile and Bethesda than if it was Obsidian and Bethesda. Even though we've talked about this, I'm sure they had to sit down and we're like, we're all moving forward. But I do feel like inXile, especially with Brian Fargo, I just don't feel like there's any, what do you call it? Even though he did make Fallout. Yeah, I don't know.
I just feel like it's weird because there are like fathers of Fallout on both ends. It's really
when they left, strange. Matty, did you ever look into if there was there negative? Was there any report of like?
Are you talking about Obsidian or when Brian left? From what I saw, it was more like he's only said positive things, but then 76 came out, and I know he had some words about that. So I'm sure he would love to take the license and do his own thing with it to some extent. But I think before that, there wasn't any bad blood. It was more along the lines of, we had this thing, our company was going under, and we got rid of it, and we're happy it's still alive to this day. That's kind of what my interpretation was on what I've read. But I don't think until 76 came out, there wasn't any strong negative. And I would have to see exactly what Brian said. But I know when 76 was under fire for the end of 2018, there was some choice words, we'll just say.
Gotcha.
Deft One Mushroom writes in, I have just one question, bros. No Onimusha love? When you guys spoke on the Capcom leak, Onimusha came and went like a piss in the wind. There hasn't been a new Onimusha game in around 16 years, so the fact that even one is in active development to me is a maze sauce. What say you all?
No.
Oh, he's hurting. He's writhing. He's rolling in his seat.
Sorry, man. But no, I don't give a shit about that game. But if it turned out good, that'd be great. But no, it didn't grab me.
I don't know. I've never played Onimusha. Because here's the way I look at it. Whenever someone has tried to pitch me on Onimusha, they go, hey, if you want to see what kind of started what Souls is, you should play these games. And I'm like, why would I want to go back?
And Neo 2's here.
That, but I'm saying, why would you want to go back to the
old
ancient,
crunchy shit?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah. Like, even when they remastered it, I'm pretty sure they didn't change anything. It still played roughly the same. And so I look at that. I will care about the new one, right? But I have no investment in it. And anytime it's been sold on me, it's about history, legacy. And as much as I care about that in games, I don't got 20 hours just to throw away to see something that I'm probably not going to love. I'm sure I'll love its aesthetic and all that, but yeah, that is why I think we just skimmed over it. Like as you would say, piss in the wind.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Unfortunate for you, yes. Billy Mays writes
even
in.
Less, though.
Oh, sorry.
Maybe even less than a piss in the wind. I'm just joking. No, I'm just pissing on him. Sorry.
Next is from Billy Mays. To go with the theme of it being Thanksgiving, what is one food from a video game you always wanted to try? Yeah, man, I think of Final Fantasy 15. It's just like everything that is served. It's just like, oh, that looks good. Every time, oh, that looks good. I would love anything from Final Fantasy 15 personally. What about you?
There's a game, and I can't remember. It was a 3D game where you grab pies, and you eat the pie by, like, you throw it up against your face, and you're like, and it heals you. And I can't remember what game it was, but I remember every time I played it, I wanted pie really bad. So I apologize, I can't remember the name, but I want that pie.
I don't know why I think of like RuneScape, where you'd see your character reach in their pocket and they pull out like a whole model, and you just see like them just rub it in their face, and then the thing just disappears. Like they ate
I
the
don't
whole
know why,
cake.
but that's exactly what happened here. Is it was a pie, and they like rub their face in it, and you see juice, and then like it's gone, and like I don't know what I mean, because I would agree with you. Final Fantasy 15 had the highest textured,
food,
cookable food for sure. But
well, someone in the comments will help you out, I'm sure.
Oh, I'm sure somebody will know exactly what I'm talking about.
And my second question from Billy Mays is, what is your favorite dish to eat on Thanksgiving? I hope one of your answers includes sliders made from Billy Mays. That's me. Own Big City Sliders Press, now only $19.99. But seriously, have a happy Thanksgiving, y'all. So we got a little bit of a character here at this point. Favorite Thanksgiving dish? I know you mentioned cake a lot.
Well, just this, by the way, when I went to the restroom, my wife's like, oh, I heard, I remember you like that cake. I bought more. And I'm like, yeah. But that's pretty much, that's beside the point. That's just this time. I would still say I am still a turkey, like making turkey sandwiches with next day turkey.
Oh, it's so flexible.
Yeah. But I mean, normal stuff. I'm not too crazy on mashed potatoes if they're good, and stuffing. So pretty much Thanksgiving as a whole. I named it most of the main ones.
For me, favorite thing from Thanksgiving is creamed onions. It's a thing we do at home. Milk, a lot of butter, and you make your own cream sauce, and you put it on these kind of peeled onions, and it's just such a unique texture and flavor. It's so good, though. Recipe from my Mimi, so has a special place in my heart. Definitely my favorite part of the dish every year. Mac, the knife, writes in a couple questions. So I'm trying to figure out the best audio headset for next gen. I really want as close to 7.1 as you can get, but I'm insanely confused about next gen audio. I have 3 quick questions that I'm hoping will help point me in the right direction on the best way to listen to 3D audio from next gen. 1, are all gaming headsets only utilizing simulated surround sound via stereo?
Yes.
Okay. Number 2 then. Is the audio better in a headset like the Astro A50s that utilizes a USB as the main source of audio by being plugged directly into the console over a headset that provides audio via being plugged in directly into a controller's 3.5 millimeter jack?
No, but the controller's audio is worse. It's not the headset. I want to make sure he understands that you can get a USB headset, plug it in, or you can get an analog and plug it into a USB and plug it in. That'll sound the same. It's just that the actual audio through the controller is demonstratively worse. It has nothing to do with the headset. So I don't know if that's what he was saying. I just want to make sure that's clear.
No, I think he's asking, like, do I invest in something that goes via USB, or if I had a cheaper option with a plug into the controller, is there a trade-off on that convenience? And so it seems like there's really not.
There's not with the headset, but yes, there would be with audio. He would hear a difference.
So he would want to go with USB.
Probably, yeah. Okay. Yeah, if we're talking about that in particular, he would but what I was getting to is USB is the connector, not the headset. So you can get a headset that's got a 3.5, like you and I use. I assume you're using a 3.5.
Yes. Yep.
And then you can also get like an adapter that takes the 3.5 and turns it into a USB. So you can get a headset that does both, I guess is what I'm saying. He can buy a headset that will plug into the front of the PS5 or Xbox as well as into his controller, but he will hear it better through the USB.
And that leads to his final question. Is there a headset you'd recommend for next gen within the $150 to $300 price range? I really like and this is below his price range, but I really like the Hyper X Cloud 2 or whatever it's called.
Fucking doesn't.
I love those.
They're stupid. They are. People don't realize, and I'm not going to mention those because he did go a little higher, and I can give an example of a little bit better ones. But dude, if they're the most comfortable headsets in the world, and those headsets are based on excellent actual audiophile music profiles. So they sound better than they should for $99 or whatever. And I have 6 pair of those fuckers. I mean, all the different brands that they're so good. But I was going to say there's I'll post it in your Discord later so I don't have to look it up and open up my browser. But there is a brand new pair of Behringers as well as a brand new pair of Sen that are about 170 to 250 that are fantastic. And I'll post those in the Discord.
Perfect. Well, there you go, Mac. You're all set up for next-gen sound. Mr. Black writes in, "Hi, guys. Thank you for answering my question so well. It helped a lot. Have you guys ever had a game that you love to pieces, but when you try to tell someone about it, they have no idea what it is? And if so, what is that game? For me, it's Red Dead Revolver on the PS2. It's one of my childhood favorites, and no one seems to have heard of it. Thanks, guys." Interesting. I feel like this is a popular one just because of the Red Dead selection. I've personally never played it, but this one's a bit of a shocker. I think for me, mine is Danganronpa. It's really hard to get a conversation going outside of my friend group on Danganronpa. It's like, hey, you play this game? The what? Dangan who? And so I get that entirely. It's that game series you want to talk to people about. It's how Persona used to be, but now Persona's franchise is so in your face about everything that they're getting a really negative reputation. And so I feel like Danganronpa could eventually be on their way there, but because everyone wants to talk about Danganronpa and spread the word of Danganronpa, and eventually there'll come a point where everyone knows, and then what's the next step? Downfall. Do you have one that comes to mind?
No, you did try to explain to me at Danganronpa one time, and I would agree with you. I didn't understand what the fuck. I downloaded it, and stupid. I don't know if I tried to play it. It sounded. I get why people like it, but it sounded dumb as fuck. I mean, not really. Minecraft, that's how I felt explained to me. I don't try to explain it to other people, but when Minecraft was explained to me, it took me 4 years to play because I thought it was the dumbest explanation. People would be like, "You dig shit when you build shit." I'm like, "Dude, dumb." I'd see him play it and I'd be like, "You're dumb." And one of my friends in my Discord, he'd be at work and he'd be like, "Dude, I'm playing Minecraft." I'm like, "You're dumb. It's a dumb game. You're a dumb person." And I'm not lying. 4 years later, I turned that on finally and was like, "Oh my God, this is awesome." So
I love it. That's actually really funny. Hey, look, we're all guilty of at one point or another berating a close friend for their game choice that you just can't possibly agree with. Mine is we bought my friend a copy of Nier Automata, and he's just fucking hell-bent on not playing it. We bought him the game, and he spent
more time not playing it than telling you
he's just said I'll play it after this game, or once this game comes out, or I'm not in the mood. He sold his fucking PS4 to get a PS5, can't buy a PS5, and he goes, "The first game I'll play when I get my PS5 is Nier," and we're like, "The fuck you are? No, you're not. We know you're not, and we're gonna hate you for it. We're just leaving the door open now so we can hate you for it." Son of a bitch. Natural Calamity writes in 2 questions. Number 1, a common question is, when will gaming graphics get better? But I want to ask, when will real life graphics get better? When will I be able to see the world in full noir fashion with cybernetic eyes, or be able to block your eyes from seeing a certain thing or person, a type of optical censorship? Just a wacky thought, but we'll expand on this. This sounds like a movie, Karak.
It does, doesn't it?
Right?
I mean, I've already got contacts that allow you to see Google searches and stuff when you look at people and they've got glasses. Really? So I would assume, I like the idea of, you and I joked about this, I think, when we were talking about VR, but it won't be very long if I'm sure it's already actually happened, but where you put on a headset and your girlfriend does, and she looks like Jenna Hayes and you look like a football player, and you fuck. That's not too far off. Well, it's not too far off. I mean, and that is a movie, by the way. Bruce Willis did a movie based pretty much on just that, where people who were infirm or scarred. Yeah, his wife was scarred, and he was heavy, I think, and they both lived in cocoons for most of the day, and then they would get out and see each other, but they didn't like each other in real life. It was only in this alternate where they did. And yeah, I wouldn't say it'd be too far off if they. I mean, I think that kind of stuff is, even if it's not overt and there's a social justice movement against replacing what somebody looks like, you need to respect the body, like almost anti-boob surgery. There'll be a black market for it, for sure. There'll be something, like, don't you think? I mean, why would there not be that? Like, why would a person
I'm almost like confused on what you're saying.
So imagine putting a pair of contacts in, and when I look at you, I see whatever you want me to see. You're able to say, I look like Michael Jordan, and you look like Michael Jordan to me. That's what, and what I'm saying is there'll be social justice movements against that. People would be like, you should be accepting of what you look like and blah, blah, blah. But what I'm saying is I don't think it's too far off. For example, you already have this, I know, and I have this on my phone. I can look through my camera and see virtual creatures on my desktop and all that stuff. Google Lens lets me look through and see and put costumes on things and people. I just don't think it's that strange to assume some people who aren't comfortable with themselves will have what he's talking about, which is,
right.
The ability to
time.
A matter of time. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Even if it's just porn.
Even if it's just porn. Question.
Porn runs everything.
I mean, it does. It does.
It does. It's all technology is based on it. Like that's why we've got CD-ROM. People don't realize the entire reason we have CD-ROM is due to porn. So
I didn't know that. That's actually
dude, CD-ROM and porn and internet, by the way, are absolutely intertwined. 100%. Like there's no go read about it. It is phenomenal to see how porn pushed the industry because people wanted better and better tits. Like
that's wow.
Dude, it's fun. Go look it up.
I'm curious.
Go down that rabbit hole.
Yeah, I was about to say. Just grab a snack, kick back, and learn about the history of CD-ROMs.
Yeah. Time to investigate CD-ROMs and porn. Hey, Mom, can't come to the dinner table looking at porn. It's for work.
Next question from Natural Calamity is on the other end of the spectrum. With Game Pass on Microsoft's end, and with them being in many fields and many different industries, and Sony being in the top of the game space, but lately, Jim Ryan has shown that he wants some of the pie with Game Pass. So my question is Sony able to match on the value side of things? Could they make something that could match the behemoth of value Xbox is offering while being a fraction of what Microsoft is worth? See, the thing here that's interesting is PlayStation said they're going to try to combat Game Pass in some way. And maybe they're just saying that because Game Pass is so big, you can't say you're not doing anything. But I thought PlayStation Plus was that. Then you look at PS Now, it's got an interesting library. I don't think it's as broad or diverse as Game Pass. But you look at a lot of PS Now, it's a lot of Bethesda games. Like a lot of them. Wet is there. Prey is there. Dishonored's there. They got a lot of stuff there. And I have no doubt in my mind that stuff will probably go when the Bethesda deal is signed with Xbox officially. So with PS Plus Collection existing and that not being their response, apparently, I do wonder what they're going to do because Xbox seems to have already seeded a lot of relationships and has had like a couple of years to say, this is our platform. We have proven that you will have a positive benefit by being on it. Phil Spencer just did an interview recently where he said like they sometimes do flat rates and pay people to come on. Sometimes they'll pay for the development of a game or help pay for the development of the game, get it done, and then the developer just makes on top of that the retail value. So what do you think exactly PlayStation is going to do to match Xbox?
Nothing.
That's what I was thinking. I feel like it's almost, I don't want to say a lost cause. I feel PS Plus Collection is enough to kind of be halfway through the door. And I feel like that's what they want to do. Don't ignore it, but don't try to compete against it.
You're absolutely right. And do you know who thinks this up? Not Natural Calamity, by the way, but people who think this up are game fans who think that people are revenge fucking each other's girlfriends. That's not the
just
game
company's... the porn conversation from the last section.
Well, sorry. I'm going to get this demonetized for sure. No, you and I, so when you look at a company, game fans talk about this. Oh, Bethesda was bought by Microsoft, so Sony has to buy somebody. It makes no fucking sense whatsoever. Mm-hmm. None. It doesn't even, nothing logical is in that discussion. That's a game fan discussion. So when somebody says they have to blah, 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 you're absolutely right. They've already attempted 2 different means and it hasn't worked out. So maybe they'll merge them, right? Mm-hmm. What they will do, though, is they'll want to make sure that their systems work. And some of it will look like Microsoft's, of course, but a tit for tat wouldn't make any sense. It would be a loss. It would be a loss over multiple years to create an infrastructure. And I don't think anybody believes Sony has the infrastructure to even do that, as in not even built yet. So then they would have to pay for that, where I think if Jim Ryan's smart, he would never do that. He would do his own thing. It might have, like I said, it might have some deals and stuff. We also know multiple people reported that Sony was out there trying to pay insane amounts of money for exclusives for the PS5 for launch. And they didn't get as many as they wanted, apparently, but they did get some for like DLC and stuff like that. I think Sony's for sure will do that onto their like PS Now or whatever, say, hey, we'll pay this company, this amount of money, blah, blah, blah. Where I think Microsoft's is a little different. Microsoft seems to be a little less gamified. Microsoft takes some chances I wasn't expecting. Whether it's Ashen, Ashen is a weird colored Dark Souls, like indie game that Anarupa and them had worked together on. Like, it's just not what I assume Sony would be more like Assassin's Creed DLC will be exclusive, if that makes sense. Like theirs is more big budget. So I for right now, I don't see a huge drive. I could be wrong, but
yeah. Next up is from Paco Luigi. Season's greetings. Any nightmare Black Friday stories to share? Always funny to have a day of thanks followed by trampling over your fellow neighbor for a new gizmo. Best, Paco. I never went out on Black Friday. I never went out. I did not want to compete. I just waited till I never understood it because I'm like, Cyber Monday is a couple of days away. It's not like we're like right on top of Christmas here where you got to get that thing purchased that night. I feel like the Cyber Monday deals usually match, if not, we're better than Black Friday. So I don't have a story to share other than I've never been out on Black Friday because I've never found the interest or intrigue in that. But am I alone on that? Have you just gone out and fought the war of Black Friday?
There'd be no, I mean, I agree with everything you said. I don't think there's a single time I've ever seen a deal better on Black Friday than now. Cyber Monday, you do need to realize, Matty, is more your age. People prior to you, there was no Cyber Monday. That was created.
Right.
So there might be some older people who remember, but I don't think I ever went out on a Black Friday. If I did, it was like to a Fred Meyer. It wasn't to like I don't know, whatever the term would be, but some megapolis store, with billions of people. Also, there was I think the big fighting, I don't know about you, Matty, but it feels like in the last 5 to 10 years, the big Black Friday fighting has been more of a thing. I think I did go to Toys R Us one time and it was not bad at all. It was like people were in line. They were like excited, but people weren't karate chopping each other over a fucking turkey, which it feels like now it's just sort of the mob mentality when a door opens. And, but no real stories. Just
Same.
like you.
Sorry to let you down, Paco, but no stories here. We're smart shoppers, Karak. That's what it says. We don't need those stories.
I
can tell you about great deals I got on Cyber Monday, but none on Black Friday.
Yeah, true. I could too. Yeah, good deals on Cyber Monday.
Logan B writes in, "Hey guys, Matty, I've been watching your videos since pre-release Fallout 4 hype many years ago.
Ooh.
And I've been listening to the podcast since 2018. Ham Radio is easily my favorite podcast to listen to these days. So after all this time, I finally got a Patreon. Thank you, Logan. Appreciate you. Hope you enjoy your stay here." But he says, now on to my questions. Number 1, I think you've mentioned this before, Matty, but I think Fallout and Elder Scrolls are criminally underused IP, and I think they both deserve better for spinoffs. I have said this before, yes. What is your guys' dream spinoff game for both Elder Scrolls and Fallout? This could be any genre from RTS to shooter, to beat 'em up. For example, I've always wanted a third-person semi-survival Fallout spinoff with a heavy emphasis on narrative, like The Last of Us in the Fallout universe. Anyway, I'm excited to finally be a patron, and I love hearing all three of you guys chat games. Keep up the great work. Thank you, Logan. So, Karak, Fallout spinoff, Elder Scrolls spinoff, what have you for me? If anything. Karak's thinking. He's pondering.
Okay. You guys believe that there's not enough Fallout in Elder Scrolls?
I genuinely think so, yeah. I think...
Really?
Yeah. I absolutely think so, because you have the main... And it's almost admirable to an extent when you think about it. They kind of did something shameless with 76. But when I look at Fallout and how... It's absolutely one of the most... It's probably the most popular thing Bethesda owns. It's so recognizable. You look at that, and then you look at its lack of spin-offs, how protective they are of the IP. You know, they've made a Monopoly game. They've made board games. But I'm talking like true video game spin-offs and expanded material. Outside of Fallout Shelter, there's really not much there. Where I'm surprised they haven't been a little more... After Fallout 4's success, I thought, okay, they're going to hand this out to people. We're going to see a lot more Fallout. We'll probably eventually see a Fallout Online when they're going to like try to just tail it off and go, okay, let's kind of just ride this Fallout thing until the next major one. But instead they leapt right into 76, and I think that was the bad choice. They should have started being like, okay, let's make a Fallout fighter. I don't know how that would work. I don't even think that would work. But I'm saying, just that was on my brain. You know, like a Fallout genre. Fallout
That's so
genre.
dumb.
Yeah.
I want to see it now.
The Vault Dweller versus the Soul Survivor or some shit.
Yeah, or what's the walrus-looking, fucking nasty, fleshy walrus-looking creatures?
Oh my god,
they're in 3. Not the bugs, but the other guys. There's a fucking name for them. Oh shoot, they're in 3.
Yeah,
but anyway,
Centaur.
Centaur. Those things are gnarly.
Centaur are fucking nasty. Yeah,
nasty as fuck. So, Matt, I've literally never thought this thought in my life that they're not. I feel that like ESO and all this, that it's everywhere, everywhere, and that like the remakes are everywhere. I get what you're saying is they're not other. If the remakes are sort of taking up space where something new could be created, I guess. But so RTS, I wouldn't want to see an RTS. I don't think Fallout makes sense because too many people getting in one spot, they're just all going to get eaten by some fucking plague creature or whatever. A shooter, I don't know. A shooter to me feels like, I mean, I would like to see better shooting in Fallout versus a shooter, if that makes sense.
Right, of course. I agree.
What other genres are there? Let's see.
See, I would like to see an Elder Scrolls RTS because I feel like that sort of fits. There's a lot of times in the lore of Elder Scrolls, and by the way, I'm not going to like point out anything specific because I will just make an ass out of myself here. But I genuinely think that there are so many wars that they refer to, armies battling each other. Yeah. I think it'd be really cool to see an RTS for Elder Scrolls, and you carry in some of the progression elements that we've seen, some of the role-playing elements you've seen in past entries, and try to give it its own identity. And I think you might have something there. With Fallout, it's really hard because Fallout's first-person, third-person. It's a shooter. It's an RPG. It's very broad in what it does. So I agree. Like making a shooter, I feel is kind of silly. I always joked about how, Fallout should do. There's this thing called the Resource Wars. It's a point in the Fallout timeline where early on, before the world ended, people were like buying stuff out and fighting for the resources around the globe, like oil and all that stuff. Like countries were fighting for it. And I'm like, imagine they just make a Fallout first-person shooter based on this. And I'm like, wait, that's like fucking Call of Duty, except it's the apocalypse incoming. And I don't know. I feel like almost that takes away. When you make Fallout just a shooter based off what it is nowadays, I feel like you almost take away from it because you're stripping elements. So it's no longer a role-playing game. It's just a shooter. So I think Fallout in general, based off 4 and 76, just needs to improve on its core RPG formula before it even thinks about spinning off. But I think if it is going to do any type of spin-off, this is a hot take. I would really like to see them try the Diablo-style Fallout game again. I thought Tactics Brotherhood of Steel was really enjoyable. Kind of tried to hop in on what Baldur's Gate was doing around its time, what Champions was doing.
Norath
Champions of Norath and Champions Return to Arms. It was kind of a game in that mold. And with Diablo and Torchlight 2 existing, as well as Path of Exile, I kind of want to see Fallout, because I think there's a lot of cool classes you could use for Fallout and personalities you could attach to characters to make for a really fun Fallout co-op don't want to say just beat 'em up, but make it about guns and have an energy weapons character and a big guns character and explosives character. And I really genuinely think there is room there for something. I don't think people would go crazy over it, but I think that's something I'd see and go, wow, that's cool. That's a spinoff I'm surprised hasn't happened. Next to the fighting game. How the fuck hasn't that happened?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, frankly, now I've lost all confidence in them since they haven't pitted a centaur against one of the fucking Brotherhood. That's just so dumb.
All right. Matt Pat writes in with our next entry. Hey guys, I have a bit of more of IRL question, if that's all right. Of course it is. What was a moment where you felt where you were very insecure or unsure about yourself or situation, and how were you able to overcome that? Thanks so much for everything you guys do. I look forward to these every week. It's our pleasure. So, the time you were unsure or insecure about yourself or a situation, and you were able to overcome that. Do you got one that comes off the dome right away?
Not right away.
I would say for me, I think of, of course I think we've all had a bout of insecurity here or there, but I would say a more definitive moment of uncertainty with myself was probably when, honestly, when Rags made a video about me. It was just a half hour of just tearing apart a video I made. And then I saw a lot more people come out of the woodworks who didn't like me. And it was kind of one of those, I didn't realize it at the time, but it was really one of those moments where you're going one way or the other. I was like, if I fuck up my response, then that's it. I'm probably done for, just based off how the internet is. And it's really hard to just recover from making a mistake and not having the right reply. But also being insecure that, like, would people ever take me seriously again? Would my channel grow again? And eventually I just decided, just full transparency. Here's what happened. Here's what I was thinking when I made the video. Here's how I'm going to change. And if you want to stick around and watch that unfold, please do. If you don't, you don't have to. And, it was one of those things where I view it as a turning point for me. I think it was good criticism to have. Because I think what cut deep was not Rags' video, really. It was more like seeing people who had watched me for a while tweet at me and be like, he's kind of right. Or I feel this way too. I feel you need to be better. And so you feel vulnerable because you'll see those familiar faces in your mentions and your comments that usually were kind of hyping you up and you're feeling good about yourself coming at you from a different angle. And so that was pretty pivotal for me. And I guess the way I put in quotes, I overcame it, was I learned through, I've talked with Karak multiple times and, friends around YouTube and my family, just to kind of trust in my own talent that I can do this and I have to know I'm capable. And that's the only way through. Like, I just have to know I can do it because no one's going to fucking teach me. And there's nothing to be taught, but I learned a lesson. And I can't just a lot of people get hit once and they don't get back up. So it was really just about trusting, like, hey, you've played games and talked games for most of your life. This is what you were born to do, Matty. Like, you just got to go out and do it. And not being afraid if someone's got something to say, just being open to that criticism. And so, yeah, that's hopefully is a thorough answer for you, Matt Pat. What about you, Karak? Did you come up with something in my monologue?
I mean, I for sure have, but I don't dwell on them very long.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm absolutely sure. I mean, at some point, I just deal with it. I mean, I know it's there, but I definitely have been taught to, like, take the step prior to worrying about it, I guess. So, like, if something did pop up, usually we were trained, like, if it pops up and you have a choice to do something right then, at least you're taking an action and you're not miring yourself in the self-doubt that will build up like a wall around you. It will stop you from doing anything. And that's certainly happened at times but it's usually me. I think also the harder you are on yourself, maybe prior you weren't so hard on yourself. Maybe prior you went into what you were doing in videos as more of just, whatever the term would be, hanging out with friends, talking about games.
I shot the shit way too much.
Right.
Honestly.
And then somebody said blah, blah, blah. And you're like, oh, I mean, you may not like it, but, and it sucks at the time, but then afterwards you're like, okay, I just, you have to be a little bit more careful. I would say mine usually were probably places where I worked, because I worked with really smart people. Weren't common sense at all. These fuckers would burn a house down by like using the wrong power outlets and shit. I mean, they were crazy unsafe, but they were so intellectual that getting into a discussion with them was ridiculously putting you in your place. So I would say I definitely remember times where I would have to buck up and be like, I know what I'm talking about. Because like I would go into a technical discussion, and even though these guys knew everything about education or science or archaeology, because I was at an education center, I knew what I was talking about. But you would get ready to go in and go like, fuck. Like these people are they were mastered. Like they were the ones teaching the people who taught people. So it was just weird. And I definitely remember going in and being like uncomfortable. But you know what I did? I mean, and this is you'll learn it from self-help people. I would just walk through that. So if like I would go to a door and go like, I gotta fucking, remember, but as I'm thinking, I'm like, move. And I would just walk forward. And then at that point it becomes, then you just sort of go.
You just start, you just start doing it almost. Cause I've realized that over the years I used to freeze, and it's just eventually like
rough if you freeze.
Exactly. And eventually you just tell your brain no, and you just kind of go every time. Yeah. Like that's what I do. Like when I get cool offers that like might put me in the center of attention in a way that I've never been before, I'm like, oh yeah. And I don't even think about it. I'm just like, yeah. Cause like if I give it more time to think and ponder, I'm like, well, do I want to? Do I not want to? It's just like, no, do it. Do it. This sounds cool.
Yeah. And your brain's a danger machine. It's there to keep you alive. So it'll warn you about everything. And people just don't realize that. Like that thing was there to keep you safe from pumas leaping out of the bushes to kill you. And so it's going to do everything it can to make it sound as horrible as possible. So your best bet is to just be like, fuck. I mean, I'm not saying run into bullet fire. I'm talking about normal shit we deal with. Jesus, people. Yeah. So, but I mean, he's got a better one than I do. I don't really have a good one like that. It's definitely popped up in my job, but it was so high stress that you get really numb to it. Because, dude, I do remember the first time doing that a couple times, but then afterwards, you're so accustomed to super, super high stress that other things don't even register anymore. Like, I've had people attack me in videos. Angry Joe, dude, my first review, he attacked me. He didn't know who I was, but he attacked me. He attacked my review, and I was just like, hey, cool. Angry Joe watched my shit. That's honestly what I thought. I was like, hey man, he watched my video on a game. Like it's gonna matter in 10 years. I'm no great thespian. I'll die and nobody will remember me. Like who gives a fuck? But I get what you mean.
I
think you learned perfectly.
In my life,
yeah, you have to. Yeah, at some point you have to. But it also doesn't mean you stop taking in advice. It's a good. Your story is probably the best one because I think it teaches that it's like not everything you did was wrong, and whatever video you're even talking about. Because I don't know what video that is.
It was like it's the thing. It's almost not even. You think in that moment, and I think we've all had that moment in our lives where something bad happens.
You think it's huge?
And exactly. I thought that was it. And when I look at it, I'm like, wow, I had a bad take on Fallout 4. Oh, fuck.
Oh, was that over. Fallout 4?
Yeah, it was a Fallout 4 video. I was talking about, because every time I posted a video about Fallout 4, I remember it used to just start to irk me, not because I had like a emotional connection to the game. What irked me was whenever I posted it, people just felt obligated to be like how badly it sucked to them. And eventually there came a point where I was like, I don't fucking care how much it sucked for you. Because this was 2 years after the fact. I was like, enough. Eventually there's a move the needle over or a explanation on why it sucked to you. And so I went in without a script, which I don't think that's the worst thing in the world. I've done videos unscripted plenty of times since then. But going in without a script, with no idea, and just kind of teeing off,
shooting the shit,
and and then I called it disrespectful to say that I don't know if my exact words were it was disrespectful to say Fallout 4 is bad. I said something like that more along the lines was, and I hate the word, but it was kind of like cringe inducing where you're like, oh God, like, what the fuck are you saying, Matty? Like, it's one of those things where if you liked me, you were disappointed. If you didn't like me, you're like, you're an idiot. It was like one of those moments. And so, yeah, but like in that moment, I remember I didn't eat all day. I was like frozen. I was thinking to myself, what the fuck? Like, what was I thinking? But then now here I am like 3 years later, and I'm thinking, that shit didn't matter. Like, if that happened again, I'm much more confident in myself that I wouldn't have a blunder like that, but that I could explain myself, my reasons, my actioning, and it would not feel like the world around me was crumbling like it did in that moment. Because I just didn't have that perspective then.
That's fair.
Yeah. Back to gaming stuff. Thank you for writing in, Matt Pat.
Yeah, good question.
Steve Wolf has 2 questions for us. Number 1, how important do you think ray tracing is? I have a 2080 Super, so it looks like I'll be able to play Cyberpunk at Ultra without ray tracing or at around high, maybe even a little lower with ray tracing. Thoughts? See, I have
on the game.
I was going to say, I feel like it depends on the game. I have a pretty admittedly uneducated point of view on this, but I feel like right now Demon's Souls Remake in my head is like a good example of where the ray tracing discussion can start and stop, because it's a game that doesn't have ray tracing, but it looks incredible. And so I do believe it. You know, there are games where we talked a couple episodes ago about Watch Dogs Legion on the Series S being able to have ray tracing and how that really improves things, and the real-time reflections we see in Miles Morales even. And I'm sure there are a laundry list of other examples out there. But for me personally, I feel like ray tracing doesn't determine always the graphical fidelity of the game. It's more like a bonus. Would I be correct in that? Once again, like I said, kind of uneducated here, but you know, I just feel like game by game, when you look at it, a Demon's Souls Remake, which is phenomenal, it's beautiful, fidelity mode or not, and then you look at something next to it, like even a Cyberpunk, and it's like it's a hard call to make on what would look better. It's almost like I said, a bonus. I don't think it adds so much that it would push something over the top. But once again, I could be incorrect if you want.
No, that's all right. I think the current explosion of technical videos is absolutely doing a disservice to games. I talked about this in our podcast today. I thought you and I talked about this starting maybe even prior to the podcast today, but I've got a bunch of fucking conversations like in my head. But I did discuss this, so it may have been in mine, but the consistent technical discussion of like, oh, the only 60 FPS is acceptable, only 120. Oh, this is got screen tearing. Oh, this is 119 FPS and not 120. This has got ray tracing. This one doesn't. The doesn't indicates worse, right? But it doesn't indicate worse, because you have seen that. I've also seen Control. I personally believe Control without ray tracing, especially when it first came out, looked gorgeous. They did an amazing job with the reflections. They did an amazing job with a lot of stuff. There was definitely issues with that. What I mean is the ray tracing didn't magically make it better. It never will. Ray tracing only builds on the artist's conceptual architecture that they've already put in place. So if it's not good, you can ray trace the fuck out of it and it'll look like not good, well lit, not good. Like it'll still look like shit. It'll just be a really nice pile of shit with some ray tracing on it. Right? Dark Souls isn't super reflective either. So to me, Dark Souls doesn't have a lot of reflective surfaces. I think they made the proper choice and said, let's do some of this, some of these other lighting displays. Also, people need to step away from 4K being native, having to be native. And luckily, now that PlayStation's doing it, it's suddenly okay. This is one of the things you see with a lot of game fans. This was something that's been used for years, but because Sony wasn't doing it, people were like, it's unacceptable. And now that they're doing it, it's like, it's the best decision that's ever been made. So regardless, I don't care as long as we're there. Lack of ray tracing, same way. Fake ray tracing is a big deal. It's called global illumination. You can use different nodes to make it fake ray tracing. Hey, if that works, why would you care? Right? Like if it looks 4K, but it's not, who gives a fuck? That's smart. That's a turbo versus an old V8. Like they may, they get their horsepower in different ways.
Right.
I think it just doesn't matter. Don't worry about the ray tracing. Going to be shit ton of games where they can't put it in. And then you'll see that game that makes you want to get it. Just like you'll see a game that makes you want to get a PS5 or an Xbox. Mm-hmm. I think ray tracing is almost a platform and it'll take a while.
I think part of the issue almost is that it was in so much marketing.
It was, dude. That's true.
That it has that saying it doesn't have it sounds negative.
No, you're actually you sort of defeated the entire purpose, because, dude, they sold it like no one's. I mean, just unbelievable amount of selling. in PR stuff. You are right about that. They made it sound like you had to have it.
Yeah.
Which you didn't.
I guess that's the idea, but
yeah. Oh yeah, they did a good job. Bad they couldn't make it so that they have to have Maddie's videos. If you get the same PR people to be like, Maddie and Karak's videos are the best videos ever, we'd be fucking multimillionaires right now.
There we go, right? We need to hire them.
Yeah.
Steve had a second question about Cyberpunk. It appears his Cyberpunk punk hype is at an all-time high. Do you think Cyberpunk will have any mini games other than brain dance, boxing, and racing? Given that it's an open world game, and given that I'm sure CD Projekt Red is pretty aware of how Gwent really took off into its own thing and was a pleasant surprise, I'm sure they know the expectation is that they want to have something tucked in there. But yeah, I feel like that's a thing nowadays with actually a lot of games. Like we saw Final Fantasy VII Remake had some mini games buried in there. I remember there was a rumor, and I don't think this has been confirmed. This was like 2.5 years ago. And it was on some random website that had some sources that some people were trying to give credibility to. But point being is, I remember them saying that there was some type of card game. So maybe you can see that. That would be my guess. Card games, maybe it's because I like Pazak from KOTOR. That was my first example of all of that. You know, a deep RPG with a surprisingly cool card game. But I feel like that's the go-to for a lot of companies. Let's find our own card game. Let's put it in here. Because if it takes off, it's its own platform. You can sell it. It's kind of the idea.
And I mean, I think Gwent did well, but for like me, who I wasn't a fan, Witcher 3 is what sold Witcher 3 to me. So
yeah, of course, yeah.
They got to look and decide if it's worth putting in the game too, the resources, of what they're making. Like, how are we going to, and you don't want Gwent Part 2, right? Can you imagine if they did like a Cyberpunk Gwent? I don't think people would be happy. They probably, I could be wrong, but I think that they would want like high, like, fucking some kind of hologram chess game or something, something that fits Cyberpunk. I could see that would work, but yeah, I don't know. There'll probably be some. Yakuza still holds the candle for the most mini game
really
game. Dude, how do you one up Yakuza? Like, it's ridiculous.
Man. You got like RC car racing, cabaret club,
and it's a part of the game, Maddie. That's what's weird. It is a side game, but it is a legitimate thing. It is in the game. It is a full-fledged thing in the game. It's crazy.
Really great example. If you're looking for some of that, Steve, I'd say look into Yakuza.
Oh, yeah.
Great Ape 51 writes in. Have got had the hold on. I'm sorry. I don't know if this is a typo or not. It says have got had the shipping box and retail box for the PS5 in my living room since launch in case it messes up. Also, end up keeping almost all of the computer component boxes whenever I build a new system or upgrade. All of this stuff, current console boxes, VR boxes, are packed away in my office room closet. How do you guys deal with those boxes and spare/extra parts? Do you throw them out, squirrel them away somewhere? Is my behavior rational or just taking too much space? I still have my Xbox Series X and PS5 boxes, but you've had them longer than myself as well as Dustin. Do you still have your boxes?
Not the Xbox Series X, but I do have the PS5.
Okay.
Because I dealt with so many issues.
I
absolutely have that thing ready. I'm not like, Maddie, I've got it not only ready, it's got the foam at the bottom and the foam like off to the side ready for me to put it in and ship it away if something were to happen. Like that's how many issues I had with that original. But I would say, no, you should keep them for a while, but I think the places I buy from, you can return in any box. So after a very short amount of time, we break the boxes down. And when he said, what do you do with old stuff? But he said something about hardware or something. I donate. So if I do have anything that it replaces, I do try to donate.
Same.
For sure.
Yeah.
If there's anything sitting around.
Yeah, I do the same for that. When it comes to boxes, though, I've realized they kind of help increase the value of things over time.
That's absolutely true.
And so I'm usually quick to throw it out, but I still have my Switch box. I still have my Series X box. I still have my PS5 box. And I don't know. For me, it's one of those things, you throw it in the attic, you forget about it. If you ever go to sell it, it increases the value, and there's no harm in that. Because the way I look at it is when it comes to my card collection, when it comes to luxuries I have that I keep close to me and I treat like a priority, is that if I were to sell them, it means I'm in a pretty dire situation and I would want to get the most money for them. say, YouTube falls out, I'm running out of cash, I was an idiot, all that stuff. Having my PS5 box, it's like, maybe an extra $50. Having a complete box like that.
That makes perfect sense.
That's how I view it. Maybe it's a little, you're asking if you're rational, but here I am planning for my doomsday scenario with cash by selling my PS5 with the box.
True. Wrong person to ask a question to.
Yeah, right. All right. It says Mafat here. I've changed my silly name. Hope this one's better. So Mafat Cock is now the Honorable Dixon Hand. This is just...
I'm not giving him any attention for that.
Yeah, just fucking unreal. I work for a guy who likes a lot of cool single-player games out there, but he hasn't really played any RPGs. He told me to recommend him some, but it's hard for me to think of an accessible RPG with the type of choice and consequence that can appeal to a newcomer. What do you suggest? That is a tough one, right? Because we were talking about earlier how the RPG category is so broad, can go a number of ways with it. Whether you're talking about progression, like leveling up, or you're talking making a choice, and based off what he's saying, he's looking for more of a choice and consequence in a story and seeing where that goes. If you're looking for story choices, I mean, I really do think of like the new Call of Duty as a good kind of introduction of, hey, here's some choices, here's some level of interactivity here. It is not by any means an RPG, but you do make light decisions in the stories that don't dramatically alter things. I think throwing someone into like Wasteland 3 may be a very good thing or a very bad thing, because so much happens. It's very much like, you just fucking said no to this guy, he's going to fucking kill you in 5 hours. He's going to fuck you up. So what would you think? I got to ponder a little bit. What is an RPG that might be good for beginners that comes to mind for you?
BioWare stuff, probably.
Yeah.
I mean, Dragon Age Inquisition is pretty hefty, but it's not really hefty in a difficult. I mean, there's a lot to it. Could be complex, but I mean, it's pretty easy to get into, and its combat's like right there. There's nothing secretive about how it works. It's just when he said the guy plays third person or whatever he said, action
single player games. He said,
games. My opinion is someone in there has at least a power level attribute skill thing, so he's probably played more RPG games than he thinks he has in the wide sense of RPGs.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, if he's even played an Uncharted, they've got is it Uncharted 4 that's got skills? Maybe it's not.
I haven't,
but you know what I mean.
Before, so.
You know what I mean. Those guys, like those games start to do the skill drop downs and all that kind of stuff. So it's like,
yeah. Now that you bring that up, I guess Mass Effect would probably be a really good one to pick. Third-person shooter abilities.
And you can't get lost, right? Especially in the first 3. Even Andromeda, you really can't. I mean, it's like you pretty much know where to go at any time, or what. You just have a choice of where to go, but you know where to go.
Absolutely. Yeah, I would go with Mass Effect. I would, with the Legendary Edition coming in, tell them to give a peek at that. Something now, though, I guess if they have backwards compatibility, they could just go play Mass Effect, but that wouldn't be the supposed best version of it. We'll see if that actually holds up. Yeah, BioWare would probably be your best lane, or honestly, a Bethesda Game Studios game like a Fallout 3. That's got some choices, but it's not like New Vegas where there's a lot of, intermittent choices that you make that kind of define the world a lot more. I'd say one of those two are pretty good. But yeah, those would be my picks. It's good on Karak that you thought of BioWare. Now, Karak, that's our last question.
I was going to say, what's his name? Whatever your name is. Whatever you change your name. Maybe next time, or if you ask, or if you want to add this next, I'd like to know what games he plays, because that without knowing what games that person plays, it's hard to know exactly what we're talking about. Because if he's played a game with even 1 or 2 skill branches, at some point you're generically role playing, and then it's much easier for us to. Because I was thinking, like, can you imagine jumping into like a Fallout as your first RPG? Like, it could be daunting.
Yeah, but
so it's hard to know.
Yeah, like a Fallout 4 might be good too, because there are choices at the end,
I guess I'm thinking, Matty, just so you know, there's inventory management, skills, maps. I guess that's what I'm thinking. It's like
I agree. You're right.
When you jump in, you and I think it's pretty casual because there's not fucking synergies and shit. But when you look at just the list of attributes alone, even the first time I got Fallout 4, I played 3, and I looked at Fallout 4's big fucking, with the characters moving to show like strength. And I was just like, the fuck? And I had to look at it and go, okay, which one? What? So I could see that being a lot. Even a BioWare game is what I'm saying could be a lot. I just need to know the ground floor. It's always easier to know.
I would definitely say if he's not familiar with hardcore kind of RPGs of any, not even hardcore, but like RPGs of any kind, probably don't steer him towards Dragon Age Origins. I recently went back to that one, and it's tough. It's a hard game, literally, but it's also very deep. And that's one of those games I feel like I thought was accessible, and then I went back and played it again and kind of refreshed and was like, oh wait, hold on, this is way more deep than I recall. It's kind of like KOTOR but evolved, really, is what it is. So thank you. You just reminded me of the games I was going to suggest. I couldn't, but I need to know if this guy's played something like Dishonored, because that has, you see what I'm saying? So that, like, if he's played that, he's role played. Like, then you're just adding more complexity. But if he hasn't played that, start with something like that, because it's just action, but it's with some skills that you can buy and choose to use them during the action moments. And then there's full on role playing, which is like what we're talking about. I agree with you about Dragon Age Origins, though. I personally am nowhere near as in love with it as everybody else, but having recently went back and played it, I was just like, holy shit. It's not as, I mean, I get why people love it, and it's good. In fact, it's probably still their best one, but it's pretty cumbersome. It's like, definitely, in the
maybe
early
it hasn't
going.
aged well, that's all.
In the early going, it hasn't aged as phenomenally as I thought, because you've got, I hate the Red Cliff Village part. I can't fucking stand that. If I could fucking skip it, I would every single time. The intro section, getting to your party members, takes a couple of hours. Like, there's a couple of bumps in the road. It's one of those situations where it's as if they took Terrace and said, let's make this like 4
I knew
times
you were
its
going to
length.
mention that.
Yeah.
I knew you were going to mention that place.
It's true, though. They literally took Terrace and stretched it out. So you've got your origin story, so you build your character, you build your it all works, but it's after you kind of grind it out a little bit that you're like, okay, I get it now. But some people don't have the patience or the time for that, and I understand and respect that. So.
Before we wrap up, another game you should try is Greedfall, coming out on the Xbox Series X and the PS5. Remastered,
great news.
Or what I don't know what you'd call it.
This is new content.
Next genicized. So
that was good news. I was really happy to see that. 1 million sales was excellent news to see, because they definitely deserve it. They put a lot of effort into that game, but to see the new content's coming, I'm very curious what that's going to be. I don't know if that was like, oh, we're adding some new weapons, or if they're actually going to add new stories and stuff to do. Maybe expand that opening area a little bit more. We talked about how we wanted to see more of that.
That's why I brought that game up, is because I feel those games we just mentioned, Greedfall mimics that starting. They have that weird starting area where you're learning how armor and stealth work, and you can choose to move forward or you can stay there and do a bunch of stuff. So that's and Vampire, man, that's another one he could try. Vampire is less. That actually, Vampire is good because it's a contained area too. A little less confusing.
To say that it's pretty easy to go point A to point B.
Yeah,
it's one of the better when you really think about it. Semi-open worlds are hard to design because there's a lot of load screens and interconnected streets, and I always think of Thief 2014 as a pretty good example of what you don't want to do with a semi-open world. And so I'm very impressed when a company gets it right, because I know it's not as easy as it sounds, because you just don't have like big open fields that can, instead of going down this specific road, you can just cut diagonally across to the town. That kind of thing can't happen in semi-open, really. So I am impressed by Vampire in that way as well. That might be a really good one too, because that also doesn't take a while to warm up. It's about an hour, and you're sort of walking around London doing whatever the fuck you want. A lot of dialogue, though. Keep that in mind. A lot of dialogue. Greedfall might be better from a combat perspective, although lots of enemies respawn. That might piss you off.
And the combat's, it's so strange because both of those don't have the greatest combat, and they have issues I liked Vampires probably better maybe, but they both have issues with combat, and they both are also, they have cool stuff with combat. Like I liked Vampire skills and stuff a lot. But Greedfall, I liked multiple people. You didn't like, I don't think you did, right? I thought when you and I talked, you weren't as big of a fan on Vampires like stuff as I was. Or were you?
I remember complimenting its dodging. I don't know. I guess comparatively speaking, I view Vampire in a brighter light. I think Vampire, because it has like more weapons you can use. You mentioned the skills. I love the idea of like biting someone and absorbing their health mid-combat. That's fucking cool. It's very on theme. Whereas Greedfall, I feel like you're very much doing like a whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. I played as a mage, so I'm just spitting out little bitch fireballs the whole time, and I don't know. I like it a lot as a role-playing game. I thought it had a great world. I thought the factions were cool, if not the most memorable. Some cool twists if you don't make specific choices. But the combat just, it didn't. Oh, you liked it? You liked it a lot?
No, I'm saying the combat was just not as good as what you're saying.
Oh, I thought you said that it was so good. I thought you were cutting me off to spite me there.
No, not at all. I mean, I would agree overall. I mean, there was stuff I liked in Greedfall, but I didn't. They both have issues, but they're both like B or AA or whatever.
Yeah, I'd say if you're gonna pick one of the two, Vampire. But
yeah, I would agree for sure.
Thematically speaking, I think you'll look at Greedfall because it looks a little bit above AA and go, ooh, but
Vampire, and it's got revolutionary fucking magic using flintlock carrying like that game is all over the place. That game should, by the way, be like it should be considered shit because it doesn't thematically at first fit together because you have all these weird things. So like I said, magic and monsters and flintlocks, and you're like, none of this. But man, does it pay off?
Yeah, I agree. It feels really good to play at times, but other times it just fights with you. I think it might be just a component of the party system and some of the lack of control you'd have over that. But we've certainly given Dixon a lot to work with here. That's a lot easier to roll off the tongue than Mafat. I don't like calling him Mafat. Like, that's just, Dixon's better, at least on that front of just shorthanding him. Dixon hand. So hopefully your friends got some RPGs to pick from now. Hopefully we've gotten the brain going and you know where to run with it. And with that, episode 279 of the H.A.M Radio Podcast is coming to its conclusion. Karak, we just made it about 3 hours here. So it's good for us. We're close to it, at least. Anything you want to add on before we wrap this up?
Hashtag is all we need.
I was saying earlier, you stepped away. I brought up Hades, and then I stuttered a lot. But I feel like Hades has to be in the hashtag because I felt like I kept fucking talking about it and going, oh, I didn't play it. I didn't play this one. Oh, Hades is here again. Didn't play it, though.
Oh, I was going to say vote Hades for the hashtag, but if you haven't played it, then I guess that doesn't pay off as well.
Could just be play Hades.
Play Hades. That works for me. Yeah, do it.
All right. Good reminder for us. So after the show, when I go pass out from lack of sleep, that I wake up and recall what I was supposed to do, and that's play Hades.
Indeed.
All right, so that'll be episode 279 of the H.A.M Radio Podcast. We hope you all enjoyed this episode as we went through all the nominations. We'll be back with our standard program, so to speak, next week where we'll talk about game news. I imagine things will return to normal once the vacation of the holidays is over. So take good care of yourselves, and we will catch you guys then, all right? Peace out.
Peace out.